Okay, good evening. Hi. If everybody's ready to go, we'll get this meeting started. So it is now 6:31. It's September 14th, and the meeting of the Urban Design Commission will now come to order. May we have a roll call?
Nicole Ream.
Here.
Monica Sullivan.
Here.
Barbara Cash.
Here.
Edith McKee.
Here.
Allison Gordy.
Here.
Julia Foland.
Here.
Mark Cox.
Here.
Alexandra Nanalo. Here. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the minutes. We have minutes from Wednesday, June 22nd. May we get a motion to approve the minutes? We have a motion from Commissioner McKee and a second from Commissioner Gordy. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Okay, moving on to special order of business. Are there any disclosures?
I have one.
Commissioner Foland?
I would just like to restate that I have a friendship with Peter Briggs, but we have never spoken about this project, and I didn't know he was involved in it until it showed up on the UGC at the last previous meeting.
Okay, thank you for reminding us. Commissioner Cash?
Yes, I'd like to disclose that many years ago I founded a design firm, and in 2018 sold my shares and all interest in the firm to partners, and they rebranded the firm, which is now called SALT. SALT is on the design team, but I have no further relationship other than being the founder. I always will be the founder, and we're friends. I also have friends, acquaintances with the design community, some of whom are here. So that's it.
Okay, question for you, Commissioner Cash. Do you feel that you can make a decision unbiased based on those friendships?
Absolutely.
Okay. May we have a motion to direct Commissioner Cash to participate in case 2022-0024? We have a motion from Commissioner McKee and a second from Commissioner Nanalo. Commissioner McKee, do you want to state your motion? Or speak to it?
Based on Commissioner Cash's disclosure, I don't feel that she has a conflict of interest and move that she participate.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Okay, may we have a vote to direct her to participate?
Ms. Foland?
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes. Commissioner Nanalo.
Yes, I would just like to disclose that I attended Inlet View Elementary School from 1st through 6th grade as a child, but I have no vested interest in this particular case, and I am not acquainted or associated with anyone on the design team as far as I know.
And I'll ask you the same question. Do you feel that you can make an unbiased decision on this case regardless?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, may we have a motion to direct Commissioner Nanalo to participate in case 2022-0024? We have a motion from Commissioner McKee and a second from Commissioner Cox. Commissioner McKee, please state and speak to your motion.
I move that Commissioner Nanalo participate. Based on her disclosure, I don't believe that she has a conflict of interest tonight.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's move to a vote.
Ms. Foland?
Yes.
So she can vote on her own motion.
Okay. Commissioner Nanalo will participate. If there are no other disclosures from commissioners, I do have a disclosure. Not surprising. This room is pretty full tonight. So I just want to say for this case tonight that before us, 2022-0024 Inlet View, a couple of years ago, while providing design services to Anchorage Water and Wastewater, I had conversations with many property owners in the area that are providing testimony or have provided testimony for this case. The AE project I was involved in was completed in 2020, and it was in no way related to this case. I have no financial interest and no special knowledge and no vested interest in making any decision either way.
May we have a motion to direct Chair Ream to participate in case 2022-0024? It's been moved by Commissioner Gordy and seconded by Commissioner Nahalo. Commissioner Gordy, would you like to speak to your motion?
I will just say that I would like to direct Chair Ream to participate in tonight's case.
Is there any other discussion? May we have a vote?
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the third item on our agenda, fourth item on our agenda. So we have public art selections tonight. Does anyone on the commission have any questions and or do they want to discuss what was submitted? We don't have to. If you do have a question, Commissioner Sullivan?
Could we do this at the end so we don't hold?
I think this will go pretty quickly unless unless anyone would like to discuss.
No.
Okay. So this is an informational item for the most part. So if there's no questions for the municipal representative or staff, then we should be able to move forward. Seeing none, we'll move on in our agenda. Okay, so moving on, we are to the unfinished business and actions of public hearings, which is why I'm assuming most people are here this evening. The item is the case 2022-0024, major site plan review for Inlet View Elementary School. And the petitioner is the Anchorage School District. I will just make one statement. During our meeting in May, a motion was passed to postpone this case to this evening. This case is considered a public hearing. So I will read the procedure. Or do I? Before staff, yeah. By which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission. And please, I know there's a lot of people in here that would like to speak, so make sure that you do abide by the time limits provided when I speak to them. So the procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for the public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, are given 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. Representatives of groups such as community councils, PTAs, and that sort of thing are given 5 minutes. Individuals are given 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except commission recommendations to the Assembly, which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. So again, just to reiterate, the individuals are given 3 minutes, and I will interrupt you at 3 minutes. There is a time clock here, up here, so it will be very clear when you know your time is up. 5 minutes for groups. Okay, moving on to the case. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, I will provide a synopsis of the staff report. This is a renewal of a major site plan review for replacement of Inlet View Elementary School. The case was renewed during the April 13th UDC meeting following Robert's rules after it was denied during a public hearing at the March UDC meeting. The alternate equivalent compliance request for landscaping was approved during the March UDC public hearing. Since the renewal, the Anchorage School District has submitted additional information reflecting changes and clarifications to the site plan. This additional information is summarized in the staff report and available in Supplementary Packet 5. Renderings of the site are also provided in Supplementary Packet 6. The main change is the move of the new school building to the edge of the existing utility easement, which moves the building, fire lane, asphalt play areas, and playground equipment about 20 feet to the north. The layout of the kindergarten play area equipment has also been changed to increase solar access. With these proposed changes to the site plan, the existing school would be used during construction and then would be demolished when the new building was ready. The additional information submitted by the Anchorage School District also included a response letter from Municipal Traffic Engineering showing their concurrence with the findings of the Traffic Impact Analysis, or TIA, memorandum. Many public comments were submitted for this case, both criticizing and supporting the site plan. Comments received before midday today are included in the staff report and the supplementary packets. The UDC had clarified previously for this renewal case that verbal and written testimony from the March 9th public hearing is to be incorporated into the staff report, and that the public is allowed to testify or provide written comments for the renewal, regardless of previous testimony or comments. Notice was provided for the renewal case following public hearing and site plan notice requirements in Title 21. There are 4 approval criteria in Title 21 that must all be met for the UDC to approve of a site plan. The criteria are: 1, in brief, the site plan is consistent with prior approved plans and approvals. 2, the site plan complies with development and design standards in Title 21. 3, the site plan mitigates significant adverse impacts. And 4, the site plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Department finds all 4 of these criteria are met and recommends approval of the Inlet View Elementary School site plan, subject to conditions of approval 1 through 7 listed in the staff report. In summary, the conditions of approval are that the site plan maintain consistency with the submitted plans, a notice of zoning action be filed with the state, a SWIP be provided before construction, details of lighting, snow storage, curb ends, and accessible parking be resolved with traffic engineering, grading, drainage, and an improvement to public place agreement be resolved with private development, the sidewalk be upgraded along N and M streets, and ADA ramps be installed. I'm available here tonight for questions. Jessica Willoughby, an attorney with the municipality, is also available here tonight to assist with procedural questions. The current planning manager Dave Whitfield is also available from the Planning Department. He is on the bridge phone tonight for questions. That concludes my staff report. Thank you, Chair Ream.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? All right. Seeing none, may the petitioner please step forward. Please state and spell your name for the record, and if you'd like any time reserved for rebuttal.
Yes, I'd like 5.
Oh, and also, we need to turn your mic on. It's a little, yeah.
So I would like to reserve 5 minutes of my time following public comment.
And please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Tom Feniseff, Fenoseff. Good evening. I'm Tom Feniseff. I'm the Senior Director of Capital Planning and Construction for the Anchorage School District. I'm excited once again to share the Inlet View Elementary School replacement design with you. Before I talk about some of the design modifications we have incorporated since last we met, I would like to introduce the team that has done such an exceptional job creating a better inlet view from the collective thoughts and ideas of students, staff, and the community. From ASD, we have Charlie Peters, the project manager, Larry Morris, planning and design supervisor, and the newest inlet view principal, Arthur Sosa. From our consultants, we have Paul Burrell of Envision Architecture, Peter Briggs of Corvus Design, Landscape Architecture. Since our original submission in January of 2022, we've provided supplemental information that specifically addresses your feedback to us. In addition, you have received the staff's recommendation to improve the site layout. We have reviewed the staff's recommendations and only require further discussion on item 6B to the public feedback that we've received, that being the request to add a sidewalk on the M Street Cul-De-Sac. The district has heard from many residents of M Street that they want to avoid attracting parents to this area for drop-off and pickup of students. The current design illustrates this request. For brevity's sake, I will quickly touch on the design modifications we made based on the community feedback and concerns. 1, moving the building farther to the north on the site. The building is now 20 feet further north, which is 89 feet from the nearest neighbor's property line. 2, concerns over the building's height. The district has modified the height of the building to be 3 feet below the 30 allowed by residential code, not necessarily code for PLI, which the area is zoned for. Number 3, retaining access between Inlet Place and M Street. Access has been maintained via the existing easement. Number 4, preserving existing vegetation. The district has designated existing trees in the northwest corner to remain. Number 5, site visibility. The district has improved site visibility lines through careful placement of structures and landscaping. Number 6, site security. The district has designed this site to meet crime prevention through environmental design concepts and best practices. Number 7, access from M Street. Access remains for residents and is designed to avoid attracting non-resident traffic as a thoroughfare. Number 8, parking reductions. The current amount of 67 spaces is the minimum allowed by code and recommended by the staff to remain. The site currently only has 26 parking spaces. Number 9, playgrounds in shadows. Playgrounds have been relocated to be in sunlight during Inlet View's playground times. Number 10, resulting traffic for the new site. The new traffic patterns will make students safer by moving bus pickup and drop-off on the site instead of on 12th Street where it is now. In addition, the on-site parent pickup and drop-off queuing lane has been tripled in order to make students safer and reduce neighborhood traffic congestion during pickup and drop-off times. Number 11, more community involvement. From your packet and the display board there, you can see that there have been no less than 23 public engagements regarding the Inlet View replacement design since October 2020. I can think of very few projects of this magnitude that have even come close to the amount of effort given to engaging the community and getting their feedback, even with the added challenge of accomplishing this task during a pandemic. The design team and I look forward to your questions, and I would like to reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there questions of the petitioner? Seeing none? Are you, okay. Commissioner Cox. Thank you.
Hello, Petitioner. So in regards to the parking spaces, you said the minimum was 67, and is that based on enrollment of students?
That is based on municipal code.
Which is the quantitative part of it. Is the municipal code based on, what was it, 300 students? You would need 1 per 6 students, and then 67 parking spaces, just for clarity?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a decrease in enrollment when it comes to Inlet View Elementary?
Not significantly. Inlet View Elementary still has over 100% capacity.
And how much is that in numbers?
In terms of, I don't have exact numbers, maybe principal can share that information.
So can I speak from here?
No, I'm sorry, if you would like to speak, you must come forward. State and spell your name for the record, even if he did already announce you.
So currently we have 236 students right now, which is an increase from this. In October of last year, it was like 220, so there's been an increase.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I know you're the principal. What was your name again?
Arthur Sosa, S-O-S-A. Arthur.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And so, Petitioner, do you expect an increase in enrollment? Because I just did some math with the current enrollment that you have, which was the Principal Sosa had said, that amounts to about 40 parking spaces. So then is the school district expecting an increase in enrollment?
Yes.
No? Yes.
The school itself is actually being built to have a larger capacity than the current design.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my question.
Thank you. If there are no other questions of the petitioner, then we will reserve your time and open the hearing to public testimony.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming tonight. If you could please state and spell your name for the record and whether you're here as an individual or representing a group.
I'm here as an individual. I submitted a letter. My name is John Burnitz. I live at 1435 M Street. And
Okay, can you spell your last name for us, please?
Bernitz.
Thank you. And, okay, proceed.
I didn't expect to be here today, so I submitted a letter. Most of, or everything I'm about to say is in that letter if you don't hear me now. But I wanted to start off with saying that I want to, I'm impressed with the community that's here tonight. There's been a lot of division, and I hope that that gets minimized by tonight's meeting. I think we had a meeting beforehand. We did have a meeting that went some ways to resolving some of the animosity, and I want to welcome everyone here with the buttons and who attends the Inlet View School to the community that I've lived in for like 20 years as a neighbor. Having said that, there's been no change in the design plan since this board met last time. You had, as far as where the location of the school is. When we got involved and the neighborhood got involved, as opposed to the school community, the people who go there, the location of it had already been moved from the north side to the south side. There's been no reconsideration of that. At the last UDC meeting, I think that was one of the major concerns that I expressed, and I think that's one of the ones that the commissioners were concerned about. I specifically asked, these guys have worked really long and hard on this. You can tell by the quality of the design. Still, there's a lot of mistakes that we think we made. I specifically asked them at the meeting whether they considered moving it back to the north side, and they said no. So at this point, there's no real change for one of the major concerns about whether the building should be on the south side or the north side. There's a lot of data and a lot of information in 3 minutes. I obviously can't go into that about why it should be on the north side specifically, or a little bit. Is that's where it's always been located, and it's been located there for a reason. I don't know what the eventual decision is going to make, but I want to be part of that decision and part of that discussion, and it's not been reconsidered. We have a lot of time now because the school bond did not pass, so this school is not going to be built not like this summer or next month. So there is time to go back and to do that redesign, and that's what I ask that you approve or make them do, which is, again, consistent with what happened at the last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brunitz? Commissioner Renewal. Wow.
Good evening.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, why is it that you believe the school should be located on the north side versus its current location? I'd like to understand that better.
All right. The north. Well, I think I sort of said that a little bit. When the school was originally built, it was built on the north side. I think the north side is the there's a road between the school and the neighborhoods on the north side. There isn't on the south side. The north side is more access to sun than on the south side, and the drainage is a problem. I mean, and the drainage meaning. This area has both underground water and surface water drainage. And the way they interact is you need a hydrologist to tell you. But if you put an impervial layer and then increase the surface water runoff, it makes the groundwater build up when you run off that impervial layer, and that affects our house. We have 2 sump pumps in our house. But mainly, it would allow also more open space. So the 3 things: there's the shadowing, the water drainage, and the more green space. And then I think also, although I'm not as familiar with this as other people, it would allow more traffic. It would decrease the traffic input. I think you're going from 3 places where people get dropped off to 1 place. Even the traffic designs that they've seen that have been presented to you show that it's going to be a backup onto L Street as currently designed, and they find that acceptable. But if the traffic now is going to be worse under this design than it would be under the old design there. Does that help?
Yes, thank you for clarifying.
Anything else?
Oh, yes. For everyone in the room, if you're going to come speak, do you see how close I am to this microphone?
You can hear me?
You must love this microphone.
Were you able to hear me? Now I can hear myself much better.
So, yeah, nobody likes to hear themselves, but if you can keep as close as possible. Thank you. We do have one more, I think. Are you okay, Commissioner? No. Okay. All right, Commissioner Cox.
How's it going, John? So it looks like you are an immediate neighbor to the school itself, correct?
I live 5 houses from, I'm the 5th house from the school on the dead-end street. That's M Street.
Okay.
And it's such a part of our community. There's volleyball players, there's softball players are not allowed there. There's there's the salmon run, and so it's like you're in your house. It's a really great place to live.
Awesome. I have 2 questions. This is the first one. You're speaking that in Inlet Elementary, the replacement should be on the north end, or that they should at least render a design. So since your time being a resident, 20 plus years, and their time petitioning, has there ever been a rendition of a school that was rebuilt on the north end of the site?
Not that I know of. a rendition of the new school. The school's always been on the north end. Correct. We're asking that it stay there. I've never seen anyone consider a rendition or any type of design, and that's what I want, at least so we can consider the alternative. I actually don't know what the final decision would be. I know what I want, but I don't know what the final decision would be. But we know at this point there's never been consideration that's included the neighbors. When we first got involved, it was 65% finished, the design was, and the location was already decided. So I'm sure there's a lot of internal discussion, or I think there was, but it didn't include all the stakeholders. In my letter, I tell you, I've lived there for 30 years. It's the only house I'll ever own. We just remodeled it. I'm an old guy. I'm going to be there the rest of my life. We're as much a part of this community as anyone, and we should have been included.
Correct. So the second question, when it comes to I think a big emotional thing that we'll hear today, and very prevalent with the parents here, is the fact of relocating students. And you have an experience of relocating your students. And so my question is it worthwhile for your children to go to one school for a year that is not their school, make new friends, and then come back to a new school? Or is it better for them to stay on site at a school and have limitations to their playground time, but still be within the same neighborhood and the same group to you?
Thank you for that question. There's two answers to that question, and both of them are listed in the letter. The first answer is that when you're considering a building, an iconic building, a community that's going to help create a community for 50 years, considering the inconvenience for a limited number of people who go to the school, not the whole school population, for 1 or 2 years, should not be the deciding factor. And in this case, that's the only reason, the only legitimate reason that they moved it from the north side to the south side, so they could stay on there. Now, the other reason is that in my experience, my kids went to Chugach, even though we lived there, and at Chugach they moved, they rebuilt Chugach when my kids were there, two boys, and there was a lot of dramatic and very emotionally felt meetings with the parents of Chugach, not in this forum, but in the cafeteria of the school, many of them, and eventually we relocated the school to the school that was OnBase. Now, that school I think is no longer available, but for my children, it was very positive. The whole community was not destroyed. In fact, the community, I think, of Chugach became better. We all had to get on base together. We had this great Halloween party. It was a great year. My kids learned resilience. They weren't committed to one building. They saw that communities could move between buildings, and it was the people, not the buildings. And so for our experience, which is, again, anecdotal, but it's one, it worked really well for my children. What's more important is that Sharon Meacham told people, the principal of Chugach when he was there, is that she pointed out the negative sides of staying there. If the kids stay there, it's not all a positive thing. It can be a negative thing. There won't be any playground. There'll be construction hitting right next to each other, and so there'll be noise and the inconvenience of construction. There either is going to be safety concerns or the greater expense to eliminate those safety concerns. So it may not be actually a totally positive thing for the students who are staying there to actually stay there. They may be better for them to go to a different location and then come back the way it was for my children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. Commissioner Manalo has a question for you, Mr. Burnett.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Bennett. I actually have a procedural question for the board, but it does relate to your questions. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Can we ask the design team a question relating to Mr. Burnett's question? Is that permitted here? Or I'm sorry, what's the correct way to do this? I'm not totally sure.
So when they come back for rebuttal,
okay,
so make note of the questions that you have.
Okay.
Can I comment on that?
Thank you.
Am I done? I have 14 seconds left. I won't.
I think we're going to keep moving. We've got a long night ahead of us, sir. Thank you, though, so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Hi there. Please state your name and spell it, and let me know if you're an individual or a representative of a group.
My name is Moira Gallagher, Moira Gallagher, and I am representing myself.
Thank you. And you may proceed.
Thanks so much. My name is Moira Gallagher. I live also on M Street, 3 doors down from the south end of the school. I have 2 very small kids. They are 4 and 1. They are not yet school age, but I do hope that they will have a chance to go to Inlet View. I was the South Addition Community Council president for 4 years, from 2017 to 2021. I just stepped down last summer. I grew up in South Addition. I spent most of my life there. I went to Inlet View, and as it happens, my parents grew up in South Addition, and they went to Inlet View in the exact same building that is on the site today. My parents are in their 70s, if that helps to provide some context. I am very intimately familiar with the issues in the neighborhood, having lived here, again, most of my life, and having attended the school and been involved with many of the public projects associated with it. I was a member of the Building Design Committee, and I was added late. I was not an original member, but I was added to represent neighborhood concerns, of which there were many when the first design came out. And I will tell you that I had my own concerns with the design. I didn't love the fact that it was 2 stories. I had issues about how close it was to the edge of the lot, and with traffic and drainage as well. Not all of those issues were resolved, but all of my issues were heard, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that process, because I think what's important to note is that while the concerns have been stated about the involvement of the community, and the community wasn't necessarily involved from day one, I've been a part of dozens of public projects, public processes over the years, from the South Addition Neighborhood Plan to the design of Frontierland Park. I can tell you that you can't involve everybody from day one. It's simply not feasible. I can also tell you that there is no such thing as a perfect process where absolutely everybody's input is included all along the way. You will always have people who are frustrated and feel that they were left out. That has been my experience running these. That has been my experience as a participant, is that people will always feel that some element of their concerns weren't heard or that they weren't included. And I also want to say that there's no such thing as a perfect design. I don't think that the design we have today is perfect, but I think it's pretty darn good, and I'm excited about how much my concerns were listened to, and many of them were addressed and changed in the new versions of the plan that were iterated. Again, not everything that I wanted happened, but that's part of a public process, is that negotiation and that compromise, and I think that we've gotten to a model that most people in the community and most people in the neighborhood think is perfectly sufficient and will be a great school for the next 50 years. So I will use my last 20 seconds to say I would really like you and urge you to consider that this was a long public process. It included so many people, so many voices, and the designers who worked so hard at this very intently and sincerely listened to the concerns of people like me in making changes to that plan over time.
Nicely done. Thank you. Your timing was perfect. I was speaking of timing. Sorry. Let's make clear that I'm not speaking about what she might have had to say. Commissioner Morales, did I fail to close out your question last time? I did. Okay.
Yeah,
My
I don't have
apologies.
any questions for
Thank you. So, Commissioner McKee, did you have a question?
I do. Because you live on M Street and they've moved the school 20 feet further to the north, do you feel that that addressed some of your concerns sufficiently or not sufficiently?
That did address one of my primary concerns, which was, of course, drainage. That's already been brought up, and I hope that there will be some rebuttal time for the designers to talk about that. I'm not a structural engineer, so I shouldn't be the person to talk about that. It also allayed my concerns about drop-off happening on M Street. We didn't want to see a ton of traffic coming down a very small dead-end street that, to be honest, in the winter is difficult to navigate with a single car and would be extremely challenging if you had 20 parents dropping off kids. So when I saw the impact of moving the school further in towards the lot and the adjustments that were made to the traffic plan on Inlet Place, I was encouraged that it wasn't going to have as much of a negative impact on M Street. I also was encouraged by the consideration made to the traffic plan on Inlet Place.
And then I have another question for you, because you said you have a 4-year-old, which means technically they could be attending the school during construction. Do you have concerns about that child being around a construction site while the school is constructed? And then my other question for you is, how would you feel about having to relocate your child to an off-site location while school is being constructed?
Thank you for that question. I do not have concerns about my son attending while there is construction happening. I don't think that that's ideal, but I also don't have concerns about him being relocated for a year or two during construction. Again, these things are not ideal, but I'm willing to go with it. My bigger concern is the fact that the school right now does not have a safe way of dealing with raw sewage that is plumbing up through the playground. It doesn't have a safe corridor and view shed for a potential active shooter situation. I'm extremely concerned about the seismic issues in the school. So right now, my hesitation about sending my son to Inlet View wouldn't be about construction happening. It would be about what happens in an earthquake or how easy it is for an intruder to get into that building.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner McKee. Commissioner Cox.
Good evening. So your parents went to Inlet View Elementary School. Amazing. So it was built in 1951, if I remember correctly. And in 1964, something really seismic happened. I believe it was an earthquake of some sorts. And Inlet View Elementary still stood. And some would say it's due to its position on the site currently. So it seems like for the seismic issue, Inlet View may be vetted when it comes to that scenario. When it comes to sewage, you spoke of collaboration, well, my bad, you spoke of compromise as opposed to collaboration. Do you think it would be much for the community of Inlet View, M, N, L, and all those neighboring streets to ask of the design team to create a way to preserve the 1951 built Inlet View Elementary? Would that be too much to ask in regards of, the give and take that comes when it comes to negotiating?
To clarify, I spoke of my experience in the process being one of both collaboration and compromise. It wasn't one or the other. I think that in many ways the Inlet View site plans, seismology, and questions you may have about drainage should be directed towards experts, and I should not and will not pretend to be an expert on either of those. And the question of where on the lot it should be is something that you should be directing towards a structural expert. What I will say is that the core of your question seems to be, should we not take time to consider that? And the answer is we shouldn't. We have been waiting a very long time. And the children who currently go to Inlet View and the children who might go to Inlet View are in an extremely unsafe situation. And perhaps there are benefits to keeping it on the north side of the site, but you might spend another 2 years in a design process, and at the end of it, still have the community vote that they would rather have the design that is on the table right now. You could go back to the drawing board, you could spend months and even years trying to redo this process, and you could still end up with what you have today. That is time lost, and that is children's safety lost. And every day that goes by that we continue to let children go to school in that building while not acting is a real liability for all of us.
Thank you. In the event that the school gets moved to the south end of the site, your 4-year-old enters into the school and for about 2 years will not be able to utilize the playground facilities while they build one end and then just demolish the other. Is that worthwhile to his learning experience as a parent?
As a parent, that is absolutely a compromise I'm willing to make. I mean, I'll say it again, this isn't perfect. Having him relocate to another school would be very inconvenient for me since I live 3 doors down and my kid can walk to school. If he was relocated somewhere, I would have to drive him, right? Either one of these comes with its inconveniences. I'm not worried about some sort of permanent deleterious impact on my 4-year-old son by not being able to access a playground for a year or two during construction. More so, I am concerned about the deleterious impact on his health and his physical safety and potentially his life, given the condition of the school at the moment.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Commissioner Cash, did you have a question for?
Yes, I have a very simple question, Ms. Gallagher, and that is, we've heard a lot about shading concerns and the access to solar for the young children, the kindergartners in particular, and seeing that your children will soon be in kindergarten, I ask you, how is this impacting you? What are your feelings about the shading and access to sun?
And I thank you for that question. I had a number of conversations with members of the design team, through the building design committee process, and I have looked at the shadow study, and I don't believe that this is a tremendous concern. I don't see, and I would encourage you to take a look at those documents. I'm sure most of you already have, but I don't see a significant amount of shading compared to what already happens. Depending on which side of the building your classroom is in, you're going to be in shade for a significant part of the day. I remember this from when I was there. There are shady times of day when you're in school. We live in Alaska, and that is kind of a fact of life. Right now, my sons are at home most of the day, and I can tell you that our house is in the shade for a significant part of the day. I don't see the new design as having such substantially different shading impacts that it is going to have negative ramifications for small children going to this elementary school.
Thank you.
I think that was all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Hello. Please state your name and spell it for the record, and let me know if you're an individual or a representative of a group.
My name is Petra Wilm, spelled Petra-Wilm, and I'd like to ask for 5 minutes as representative of the Inlet View PTA. I hope not to use it all. My experience. I moved to South Addition in 2002, and my kids started attending Inlet View in 2015, and my youngest daughter is a 6th grader there now, so she'll be moving on to Romig. We're going to miss all the excitement when it happens. I've been very involved in the project, including being a member of the Building Design Committee. And so last March, when you were discussing the project, I heard some concern about community support. So that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. First, I just wanted to offer an opportunity for everyone in the audience who's here to support Inlet View to please stand up so that you can see, and that some kids may be able to go if they want. Thank you all. And also, after that meeting in March, in April, myself and a few other parents started collecting signatures from parents who said they supported the South Side design specifically. So we collected about 100 during a couple of events in the spring, and then just last month, it was a goal of the summer for me to walk around the entire site and talk to every single neighbor in the perimeter, and as wide as I could, and 3 other neighbors joined me in this process. We split up times. And so this map, we didn't make it everywhere, but this map at least shows you green dots that represent people in the neighborhood who signed in person that they support the South Side design, or they sent me an email or called me or texted me specifically because I left a flyer with the plans and description of the design at their house. So, and those people all live in the dots that are in the ocean represent people who are slightly outside the map perimeter. So I just wanted you to see this in the large form, and I also sent it yesterday as part of your packet, so you may have already seen it there too. Secondly, I just wanted to briefly touch on the design process, because I am an architect actually, and I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska. I have a civil engineering degree and a master's in architecture, and when I moved back to Anchorage, I was working on the Denali Elementary project and construction administration, and then I had my own project in Ketchikan, Bond Mountain Elementary, which is a brand new elementary school, a replacement of an old one downtown, and I was the project manager and the project architect for that. And then one of the last big projects I worked on in Anchorage before I started my own firm was the museum addition with all the mirrors and stripes. And all that is just to say that I have a lot of experience with large projects and public process. This process, the design process, was inclusive, and there were professionals involved. And although I have an engineering degree and an architecture degree, I did not presume to be the engineer or architect on this project, and I had trusted the process, ASD's process, and the professional's opinion on groundwater, traffic, et cetera, et cetera. I'm also a neighbor to the school. I'm a dot on the map. I was involved in the design process the whole time, and there are 2 other neighbors in this room who are also on that design committee. So I have heard several people say that neighbors are not involved, and that is just not true. So, and I also care very deeply about the appearance of the building, no matter that I don't live right exactly adjacent to it, I definitely care about how it looks and how it affects all the neighbors around. We did talk about a north side design. Paul presented us with many options, probably more than I would have ever presented a group, but we talked about them in depth and narrowed them down to the south side design for a variety of reasons. There was no one reason. That's not how any project ever works. So I just wanted to reassure you of that. And that is all I have. I see my minute.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner McKee has a question?
First, I'd like to say I appreciate the level of effort that goes into what you've prepared and to bring to us to help clarify the community support. How many green dots are there?
So this has about 140 green dots, and then we have another additional 100 signatures or so before I was collecting green dots. So we probably have, well, so does that answer your question?
So that leads me, you said there's 140 green dots, and then you collected an additional signatures that are not represented by the green dots, so
Correct.
They supplement the green
Yes,
dots.
that was before I was making an official green dot map, so.
About how many people approximately did you speak with?
Well, I personally covered all this area and over here. And then 3 other neighbors who you will hear from, a couple tonight, helped cover the other area. So I'm at least 50, 60 people myself. And I will tell you that some of the areas that do not have a green dot took the longest conversations, but left with no green dot. So the ones here that don't have green dots could mean that the person was opposed, that they weren't there, the house is for sale, it's for rent, they didn't return the invitation to send me their information.
Just want to clarify that when you were pointing at the map for the record, it was somewhere around the northwest and maybe the east side? Okay.
Correct. I talked to neighbors on the south side, all the way up the west side, the entire north side, and then the top of the east side.
Basically almost everywhere. Okay.
Thank you. That concludes my question.
Commissioner Cox.
So this will be my first time, I think, of hearing that there was a north side rendition presented to you being one of the original, it seems like, board members of this Inlet View elementary school replacement. Is that correct?
Rendition is probably not the right word. In the early design process, the footprint is proposed in different areas of the site to test out traffic patterns, test out entry areas, test out views across the site for the office, for instance. So we were responding to sort of footprint locations and different parking iterations.
Okay. Was the footprint on the north end presented to you, is the question?
Yes, we saw, yes, on the north ends and corners, I think we saw 8 different ideas,
Okay.
8 or 9.
When you say a we, are you able to put a quantitative number of how many people were present at this meeting where they did show the multiple footprints?
Yes, that was at a building design committee meeting. I think that there are 10 or 12 of us on the meeting, key staff members, and 3 parent neighbors.
Okay, so of the green dots that are presented, you're saying about 3 parents, 12 board members, and staff, they may or may not be a green dot. Is that correct, that were at this meeting?
What are you asking me? How many of us make up the green dots?
Correct.
Well, some of the teachers who were involved were also neighbors, so I would say 4 or 5 of those green dots on the map were part of the 10 or 12, I guess Paul can clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you very much, Ms. Wynn. Hi there. State your name, spell it, and tell me if you are here as an individual or a group.
I'm here as an individual, and my name is Raina Groen, last name Groen.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, dear Urban Design Committee, my name is Elena Groa, and as I just said, I'm providing testimony to support the new design for Inlet View Elementary. I'm a neighbor to the site, to the ground, and I'm a parent to small kids, as you have seen, using the elementary school for school as well as for a playground in the weekends, and I'm also a dog owner and using the site. I'm an OBGYN by training, and I'm capable of reviewing complicated documents. But I also trust professional judgment in the field of their expertise if they can explain what they're meaning. That's what I do the whole day. I explain to people what I mean when I talk my OBGYN language. And so I've reviewed the design. I've been to information sessions by the architects, by landscapers, and the design committee. And this process has given me insight in the background and benefits of the design. Teachers and support staff have added to the conversation with their expertise and their excitement for this project to go forward. I trust that the Urban Design Commission will make wise judgment about this design so that our kids can go to a safe, up-to-date school with an appropriate vestibule, sprinkler system, roof, sewage system, etc., etc. And I was appalled that the Urban Design Commission rejected the proposed design because of no community support. I really thought that was something I crucially overlooked when I looked at all the documents. So that's when I started to talking with neighbors who had questions about or concerns about the design. I spoke with the people, or at least the people I could reach out to who were opposed. I spoke with teachers, parent, architect again. I spoke with realtors. I asked them what would be the impact on the people who live on the south side. Would they have less value of their house? Like, what would they need to worry for? And they supplied me with, like, no, you have nothing to lose when this new school gets built. Actually, you will gain a lot on your house value. And then all the concerns of groundwater, traffic, green space, shadow, earthquake issues, they've all been addressed or debunked. And I see my time is getting short, so here's where I'm getting. I was the one of the people who went with Petra Wilm to all the neighbors. And what I actually heard is change is hard. And what I also heard is that there were not that many opponents. We have a lot of actually people who support it, but opponents, it looks like they want things which are just not possible. They want to freeze in time. They want to change ASD choice option for school. They don't want other kids from other areas to come to our school, and they see that as a fundamental problem. So what I'm getting at, and my minute is almost up, is that they want things which are just not possible. And so I want a school that is possible, and we have that design. So rather than going backwards with more meetings and more design discussions, we just want it built.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you.
State and spell your name and let me know, individual or group.
Individual.
Oh, and
Individual. My name is Jason Delozer, Jasondellozier. My family is new to Inlet View community, as my daughter just began second grade there this fall. We live on the east side of town, but we are still Anchorage taxpayers. As I've become more educated on the Inlet View's design replacement plan, I feel strongly that putting Band-Aids on family infrastructure costs taxpayers more every year. We cannot afford to keep waiting for the perfect day or when barrels of oil are sold at $200+. The needs of this building are not going away. We must get this through while there is a likely one-time funding to prepare for shovels in dirt in 2023. I also understand there are a handful of loud voices that have felt they weren't included early enough in the process. As we have heard, no public process is perfect. I and my family have felt the same way regarding the hasty process to build a homeless shelter at Tudor and Elmore that is within 1 mile of my house. My neighbors and I would much rather have a brand new elementary school where we might enjoy the amenities like a playground, field or sledding hill, and see property values rise instead of the largest homeless shelter ever built in Anchorage. Everyone is being asked to support our city's needs. I only wish there had been as much planning and community involvement in that project as there has been rebuilding IVE. I actually want to thank those who opposed the plan because your feedback will ensure the best possible school environment for our kids. But I also want to caution where design input begins to derail a project and may result in failure to provide children a safe place that meets their educational needs and denying your community a resource. Many Anchorage residents are committing to projects in their area of town to make our city as a whole a better place to live, work, and attend school. So I'm asking this committee to honor the planning and hard work and put in many others have put in, and let this project move forward to benefit the residents and the children across our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Wilm.
Certainly.
Thank you, Ms. Wilm, for removing that. Okay, again, please spell your name.
Sure. My name's Arthur, Arthur, Sosa, S-O-S-A.
And I'm assuming you're representing as principal.
I am. I'm the proud principal of Inlet View, and there's just a couple of things I want to be able to share with you tonight. As principal of the only PYP IB program, I just want to share our motto that we have, and just so you have a good idea of what the IB program is. We are a unique school that teaches and learns through a conceptual lens. We are positive, caring, principled, and committed at Inlet View as we inquire, explore, create, and develop. We foster student agency as we support and grow internationally minded thinkers and leaders of tomorrow. And so that's really the fabric of our school. And as we look at that and look at the hard work that went into getting Inlet View to be an IB school, there's a lot of hard work that went into it. And so I am just really proud of the school, proud of our teachers, proud of our students and community members. This is my first year there, but it's not my first year in education. I've been in education 27 years. And I can tell you, when you talk about moving students and displacing students, that does have a mental health effect on students. And the more students move, the more effect it has on a child. And I know that from my many years as a school administrator and an educator. I do know that, yes, construction may be an issue depending on the decimal of the noise level, but it's also an opportunity for students and staff to be able to see the actual construction taking place and having that agency and curiosity to learn a little bit more about what it takes to build and do construction. And it's my understanding there's even going to be like a little observatory stairs to go up to be able to provide teachers and students an opportunity to see the construction taking place from a safe distance, of course. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm here today. I think that it would be in the best interest of students and best interest of safety all the way around. I've been there for 20 days now, and I can see where safety, and I've seen the new design of the building, which is a lot safer for kids. And as principal, that's our primary concern is safety. So I really urge and encourage you to make this happen for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a question for you, maybe, Commissioner Cox.
Principal Sosa. 27 years.
Yes, sir.
That means you may have very well been my principal at one point in time.
That's correct.
And with the students that you've seen, thousands of students that you've seen, we always, or at least I've noticed, that we speak of the negative effects of students having to move, whether it be once, twice, many times. I believe you were even a principal of a school where students moved a lot because they were military children. Is there by chance that in regards to mental health that there is resiliency that does get developed in children who move schools at times?
So if you're asking the question about an option of to stay or to move, I would say staying is better than moving. You're asking the question about resiliency. You put any adverse effect or adverse situation in our lives, we as human beings have the resilience to overcome that if you have the right support to do so. But I say, why even put yourself in that position if you're given a choice and you're able to not displace students to begin with?
So 20 days, I'm sure more than 20 days you've been inside Inlet View Elementary School as the principal, and you're noticing, it sounds like, deferred building maintenance. And so that causes safety concerns, correct?
I see where it could be improved with the new design that we have. That is correct.
So the new design is a new school, and so my final question to you, does it matter to you either way, aside from all the other contingencies, whether a new school is created on the north end or the new school is created on the south end from your perspective as principal and your highest regard being towards safety?
So I would just say I don't know that much about the north side or south side. I wasn't part of that discussion. Like I said, I'm brand new to the school, and you know, I wasn't privy to that information or those meetings. But I can just speak to the design that I have seen at one of the meetings that we had recently, and it's a lot safer for kids. It's a lot safer for parents having their kids be brought to school, and just, you know, the parking, the bus, where the bus would come in, is a lot safer. I just think that it would be beneficial for all if we were to move forward and build a new school.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. I think we have more. Do you have a question for Mr. Rousseau? Yes. Commissioner McKee.
Hi. Since we're speaking to resiliency and the resiliency of students, and you as a principal, you spend a lot of time with children. In your opinion, having observed children, who do you think is impacted the greatest when they're displaced?
So it really, if you look at the human development of a child, I would argue and say, in my experience, that any kind of unnecessary movement affects everyone. It affects the child, it affects the parents, it affects everyone, because the student is having to make new friends, especially if the student was like a sixth grader and they had been there their entire time, and they build a lot of bonds and relationships with their classmates and then also the teachers, and then now they're having to be displaced at another school. It has a profound impact.
And so I don't know if you've ever been through a program where the children are bused or relocated temporarily, but I think with COVID we've all seen that there's been a significant retention or backslide. Have you ever observed that to occur when children are displaced? Thank
Absolutely.
you. That concludes my question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rousseau. I think that concludes the questions for you.
All right, thank you.
Please state and spell your name and let us know if you're here as an individual or group.
Thank you, Zach Fields. I live at 1320 K Street, which is about a block from Inlet View. I have two girls who I hope will go to that school and have a school that is there for the duration of their elementary education. And I also represent the entirety of the Inlet View zone in the state legislature, and it represents about half of the constituents who I represent. And I don't think I've ever worked on an issue that was so intensely important to my constituents. So I beg you to approve this case tonight. Our kids in the neighborhood deserve a safe place to go to school. I provided extremely detailed testimony about how this design meets and exceeds code requirements and is the result of an incredibly expansive public engagement process.
Can you pause for just one moment? Okay, we're having issues with the timer and the computer. My apologies. Want to keep everybody on task. So when you say are you here representing the legislature, or are you here representing you?
I'm representing myself. I am a legislator. I don't need 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Do you want me to start again?
Do you want to just time it? Yeah, start, yeah. Okay. And go.
Okay. Zach Fields, 1320 K Street. I live a block from the school. I have two girls who I hope will go to school in a safe environment. I also represent the entirety of the Inlet View zone as a state legislator. And there's not an issue that I've worked on that's more important and more personal about kids' safety than any other I've worked on. I provided extremely detailed testimony about how this design meets and exceeds code requirements and was the result of an incredibly expansive public engagement process, as you can see with everyone here in the room tonight. But I want to focus on one very fundamental issue. If you approve this application, the school district can move forward with constructing a safe new school as soon as this following summer using funds the legislature provided, explicitly with the goal of letting the school district construct this school. Further delay will add significant costs, according to the district, nearing $10 million. If you delay this, it would probably have the effect of killing the project because the project will become so large that it will be impractical to fund it at some point in the future. Please move forward with this project so our kids can have a safe school. What does it mean to have a safe school? It means having a safe entry vestibule. It means having lines of sight down the hallways from the administrative office. The current school lacks those. The new school will have them. I want to point out the design of this was informed by teachers, by principals who are there every day, who look out for our kids. The current school doesn't have functioning heating and plumbing, and I think it's pretty sad when teachers tell me they tell their kids to dress in layers and layer up when the heating in their room isn't working. It's pretty sad when kids have to be told, hold it, you can't go to the bathroom right now, the plumbing's not working. It's pretty sad when the sewage has been leaking onto the playground for almost a year now. These would be embarrassing conditions in a third world country, and this is America. Please allow the district to provide a safe environment for kids. Toilets that function aren't too much to ask. Heating systems that work really aren't too much to ask. The most basic infrastructure to reduce the risk of shooting, it's really not too much to ask. If you approve this design, if we move forward with this school, 18,000 kids are going to go to this school over a 60-year design life. And for every single one of those kids who's a poor kid, this could be a life-changing opportunity for them. I want to point out the overall size of this school is critical for socioeconomic diversity. Many people don't know Inlet View is more diverse than Anchorage School District as a whole. That is incredible. If this school were to be shrunk and rebuilt within its current footprint on the north side, you would exclude working class people, you would exclude people of color, to the detriment of all students. Petty aesthetic concerns must not trump the educational need of students. Please let this essential project move forward by approving the application. So many kids are counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my apologies. I'm just being told that we have lost the live stream. So just so you know, we are alone in here. Gotta have comedy. Hi, can you please state your name and spell it for the record and let me know, individual or group?
Individual. My name is Clyde Carey. That's CLYDECAREY.
Thank you. And proceed.
Awesome. My name is Clyde Carey, and I live on M Street, right next to Inlet View. In fact, I'll be right next to the new proposed Inlet View building site. My family and I moved into the neighborhood in 2018, and my family and I currently, or my wife and I currently have a kindergartner and a second grader that attend Inlet View. I'm here to testify as a supporter of the proposed design. Between my family and I, we use the school very regularly, not just for school activities, but we use it to recreate, play on the playground, ice skate, fly kites, all kinds of things. We're there a lot. Outside of moving into a really cool house, living next to the school has also been a great bonus for us. And I only see that the new design will improve that and make things better. There are several elements of the proposed design that came from a wish list that was created by parents, neighbors, and teachers and school staff members with the intent of creating a school that is in the best interest of student safety and education. Some things that I like about the school are the current school design, or the proposed school design are building it on the south side is great. Right now, as someone that lives on the south side, we get a lot of snow melt, water that comes into the ground, and some of us actually get water in our basements. Building a site there with current or modern surface drainage will definitely help with the water issues that we have on the south side. I can see that on the plans that the water will be kept on site, which is currently not the case. All schools experience traffic and congestion, and the problem that we have at Inlet View is during pickup and drop-off. Parents drop off their school from the street. What I like about the new design is that it has a large student pickup and drop-off queuing lane so the cars can pull up into the property, and that will allow non-school related traffic to flow much better. The new design even has bike racks in the front of the school, which might not seem like a big deal, but right now the school has them in the back. And that is part of the security risk of the school. The bike racks up front might help kids or motivate kids and staff to ride their bikes to school. And it will also help, the new design will also help with the overall security. Whenever there's an event at the school, us parents have to park on the street, and that can be hard for grandparents and other people that need more accessibility to access the school during an event, especially during the wintertime. So I'm excited to see that there'll be a big parking lot to give us more access to the school and those that need the accessibility. And in the morning, I see all kinds of people there that help people cross so that I'm not worried about the security risk. As you can see, I do believe that this school will be a great addition to the neighborhood. I would be excited to have this design as a neighbor, and I do feel that it is focused on safety and education. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice timing for you as well. I don't think we have any questions for you, but thank you for your testimony this evening. Please state your name, spell it for the record, and are you an individual or group?
I'm speaking as an individual. Oh, I'm short. My name is Catherine Sullivan, Catherine, Sullivan, Sullivan, and don't stop me if you've heard this before. I live on Inlet Place, directly across from where the proposed parking lot will be. I grew up in South Addition. I attended Inlet View. My siblings attended Inlet View. My parents attended Inlet View. My son, who is 4, will attend Inlet View next fall. My sister lives 2 blocks from me. I bought my house on Inlet Place in January with the intent that my son will attend his neighborhood school. Before I moved back into my neighborhood, I began attending the virtual South Addition Community Council meetings, and boy, did I learn a lot. When the very first meeting I attended was the one where the Inlet View redesign was proposed. What I learned is that the neighborhood that I so dearly love, with an opportunity for greatness, is being held back by the protestations of a few loud people who wouldn't be happy with any design unless it's exactly as the school is now. When I was growing up, if I was feeling particularly negatively toward an idea and would counter her suggestions with "yes, but," my mother would tell me she wasn't playing "yes, but" with me. What we have seen from those who oppose this plan is the most epic game of "yes, but" I have ever seen. The old school has no sprinklers. Yes, but the new design has too many parking lots. The new design will keep kids safer from an active shooter. Yes, but I don't like that it's 2 stories. The new design will have more space for the kids to learn and will allow more families to join our community. Yes, but. There is no such thing as a perfect plan. And in this case, the perfect will be the enemy of the good. This is a good design. The UDC should approve this plan, and we should continue with it. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions for you, but thank you for your testimony.
Sorry.
No questions for you. Thank you for your testimony. My apologies. I was sidetracked. Oh. I think we need to take a recess for 5 minutes? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay, we will be taking a recess for 5 minutes. Sorry about that.
I believe it's been a little bit longer than 5 minutes. We'll come back to you as soon as we can. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
We are going to resume this meeting. My sincerest apologies. We wanted to fix the live stream. We need to make sure that these meetings are recorded. That being said, the meeting is being recorded by audio as well, so if the live stream fails, we may not pause again. Moving on to one point of order here. I have been told that please refrain from clapping. So maybe no snapping, no noise. Jazz hands? No. Sorry. But please refrain from making any noise, and hopefully we can get through this. Okay. Next, please state and spell your name, and let me know if you're an individual or group. And then there's a little button there on the left. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Moira Smith, Moira, last name Smith. I'm here with my son, Owen Metcalf, who's a second grader at Inlet View, and I am here in my individual capacity. As a parent or a student, I have attended or parented at 5 schools in Anchorage over the course of my almost 5 decades. Our daughter ended up having special educational needs, and so she went to 3 elementary schools. I went to Ocean View, and my son Owen went to Inlet View, or is going to Inlet View. We chose that for him because we wanted him to have the neighborhood experience that our daughter, who is a freshman at West now, was not able to have. When we originally chose the elementary school that our daughter would go to, we selected Inlet View and we had applied for a zone exemption, and we were denied, and we were bummed out. We moved on. She went to Chugach, she went to Rogers Park ultimately, and she also went to Denali briefly for her kindergarten year. But we never considered Inlet View, even though we lived in the neighborhood, because of all of this uncertainty about what would happen with the school. By the time it was time for Owen to start school a couple of years ago, we were ready to commit to Inlet View because we were under the impression that things were moving in the right direction. We would have a new school soon. All of this is to say that in my experience at the many schools where I've been a parent or a student, I have been really shocked by the disrepair that I've seen at Inlet View. And that's just based on a lot of other experience. I've also been lucky to live in other countries, including third world countries, and including in beautiful Western European countries with centuries, almost millennia of preserved historical spaces. Buildings can last for more than 50 years, right? But only if they're properly maintained, and Inlet View has not been. My biggest concern in my professional life, we start every meeting with a safety briefing. My concern is safety. When I read through the school district's other capital proposals, they had capital proposals that included moving the door from point A to point B to ensure better line of sight for the principal and the administration to the entry vestibule. Here, there's no line of sight. There's no fire suppression. You've heard all these safety concerns over and over again. I am very concerned about my son's safety, and I think that is something that will both be resolved with this new proposed school. Additionally, the groundwater issues and the sewage will also be resolved with the construction of the new school. So that to me is very comforting. So I strongly urge you to adopt your ABLE staff's recommendation and approve the Inlet View site plan as proposed by the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see that there are any questions for you, so thank you for your testimony this evening. Hi there.
Good evening. My name is Mary Bordley, Bordley. I'm here with my son, Whit Bordley, who is a third grader at Inlet View, and I'm here speaking as an individual tonight.
Thank you.
Whit and his father and I have lived in Anchorage for 3 weeks. We moved from Tennessee, and so we are very new to the Inlet View community. I cannot tell you how thrilled we are that we landed there. Almost seems like just by luck. I came tonight not prepared to speak, but to simply show support for the proposed site plan as it stands today. I decided to speak after hearing a possibility which is of great concern to me. I hope you have heard plenty of other reasons for supporting the current design. The reason I want to speak to you is about avoiding relocating students, relocating the school. That would have to happen if it were built in a different location than what is currently proposed. In addition to being a parent, I am an early childhood special educator. I have a master's degree in early childhood special education. I've been in education for about 15 years. And anytime that we talk about disrupting an entire student body and the teachers and support staff and administration that goes with that, I become concerned about stability. I'm particularly concerned about stability, predictability, familiar places, familiar faces following the pandemic. children at Inlet View today are children who have been through a great deal, as you know. Their families have been through a great deal, as you know. And I'm just here registering my concern as a parent, but also as a parent with knowledge of education, that disruption is likely to be a greater disruption than we will know, and a greater disruption than we want to inflict upon families. We've talked a little bit about opportunities for building resilience. And these children and their families have had plenty of opportunities to build resilience in the last few years. I would argue that they don't need any further opportunities for resilience building. I also feel that sometimes we say, oh, kids are resilient, they can handle a lot. What that really might be is that those children do not have the language or the opportunity or even the understanding that they can express that, hey, they're not doing okay. There's an internalizing effect that some children have when they go through hard things, and they don't tell us. And it's easy for us to want to say, oh, this is okay, they're resilient, when they may in fact really have had deleterious effects on them. So I want to urge you to approve the design as it stands today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. And I don't see any questions for you, so. Hello.
Thank you.
Please state your name, spell it.
Yes, my name is Bonnie Lembo, B-O-N-N-I-E-L-E-M-B-O, and I'm here for myself. And my husband and I live 1 block from Inlet View School. Our daughters graduated from Inlet View. 1 grandson just graduated, and we have another grandson in attendance. I would like to address, first of all, the complaining about the process of not enough public input. You know, when you don't have a good argument on the merits, you always go to the process. It's an old lawyer's trick. Well, if you look at the school district manual, the specifications for building elementary schools, what it says, the legal advice it gives to the Building Design Committee is that the Building Design Committee is not subject to the open meeting law. When the project is 65% complete, they send it on to the city, and then they start the public input process, which is exactly what the Building Design Committee does. Now, once the open meeting law applies, what it means is people get to sit and listen. They don't get to ask questions. They don't get to make comments. The Building Design Committee went beyond that. They left 10 minutes at the end of each meeting to take questions and comments from the public. So there couldn't have been a better public process. There was a later opinion by the ombudsman that it should have been a public process all along, an open meeting all along. But it's not unusual in the legal field for 2 attorneys to have different opinions. If it was unusual, none of us would be able to make a living. And a court hasn't decided that. So let's congratulate the Building Design Committee for going above and beyond what the school district told them to do. The second is, in addition to those green dots and the petitions, I'd like to point out, and I believe I submitted these documents to you, that there's a map of all of the voting districts which have children who go to Inlet View. And when you look, and even though the bond proposal lost by 0.08%, in those districts it passed by 67%, which is unheard of for a bond proposition and overwhelming support for this school. Next, I'd like to point out 3 mistakes, important mistakes that have been made in the testimony you've heard so far. First of all, that the north end is seismically dangerous. That's not true. There have been 3 seismic studies done, the first in 2018, and Petra Wilm can answer any specific questions about that. They all found that the entire lot was equal seismically. There was no place on the lot that was more or less dangerous than anyone else. And to think that the Building Design Committee, including teachers and parents of students there, would pick a dangerous spot for the school to be built when they could pick a safer spot beggars belief. Second of all, there's an allegation that the north side was
Your time is up. My apologies. And there are no questions. Oh, nope. Commissioner Minalo.
Can I request that she finish what she was saying? I'd like to hear it.
You may finish that statement.
Okay, can I? My husband.
Okay, I think we need to keep moving.
Okay.
Thank you. Right.
Pardon me?
Either you need to finish the statement and move on. We've got a lot of testimony this evening. You had 3 minutes.
Yes, and I would like to
Okay, I'm not calling anyone up. We're not calling anyone else.
That's not it.
Can you finish your statement, please?
Yes, the north end is illegal according to the specifications for design of elementary schools issued because it is not safe.
You're not speaking into your microphone, but...
It's not safe because there is a U shape of 3 streets, N Place, 12th Avenue, and Inlet Place, and that provides a line of sight where you have passive surveillance throughout the whole neighborhood.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think we're going to move on. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
I apologize. I'm not trying to be rude.
No, I know. A lot of people waiting to speak. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. No clapping. Please state your name and spell it for the record and let me know if you're an individual or a group.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I'm loud. My name is Julie Lucky, Julilucky. I'm speaking as an individual. Should I go ahead and start? And then this is my daughter, Charlotte Bittner. I first testified in the 2015-2016 school year, which was coincidentally the same year that Inlet View was scheduled for a renewal at $3.8 million on the CIP. Sorry. At that point, the school was removed from the CIP so they could study declining enrollment. They found that the school would be more expensive to close than to keep it open. School bond debt reimbursement was halted, and the project was then taken off the bond again. We have had a multitude of plans since that time: renewal, new school, moving the kids out to somewhere else, keeping the kids there during construction like they have done with Turnagain. During all these debates, the school has only gotten more broken down and more expensive to fix. And I think the current price tag is about $37 million, which is about 10 times what it would have been on the initial CIP. I've met 3 dedicated principals during that time. My daughter has now started at West High, and my son is in his last year as a 6th grader. So he won't be inconvenienced by moving or be impacted by the construction.
I hate to be disruptive. Sorry. Can you hold that thought?
Yeah.
We lost live stream. I thought we were okay with the recording. Apparently not. Give us a moment here. Minor recess. Hopefully. My apologies. Proceed,
okay. Sorry, so my son is in his last year as a 6th grader, and so he will not be inconvenienced by either moving temporarily to another school or be impacted by the construction, but he also will never go to an elementary school with a modern safety design or fire suppression system. And I don't know what is better, a relocation or staying put during construction, but I do know that the worst possible outcome will be that our children continue to stay at a school that is falling apart and have to move on an emergency basis because they have sewage in the hallway or some other emergent problem. So I will conclude with the same ask that I made of the school board for way too many years. If you choose to hold this over today, please commit to a plan to move the project forward quickly. It is what our children deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to take another recess. My apologies. The system is being rebooted so that we can provide the live streaming that we placed on the agenda. So we'll be here for another recess. I will ask for your attention here in a few. Hopefully, it won't be too long. Okay. I think we're live. Sorry about that delay. Hopefully it won't happen again. Everybody cross your fingers. And you may come forward. Please state your name, spell it for the record, and individual or group. And your microphone needs to be on, and you might need to be a little closer. As I said, you love your mic. There's a face-looking icon. Oh, it's a green. Oh, you have a green square. Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
All right, now can you hear me?
All right, my name is Matt Allen. I am a previous teacher at Inlet View Elementary. I'm here as an individual, sorry. I was not intending on testifying tonight. I am a third-year teacher. I spent the last 2 years at Inlet View teaching second and third grade at the school. Was lucky enough to have my classroom in both the intermediate wing and in the primary wing. The intermediate wing classrooms are about 87 degrees average a day. I would go to school every day and come home just drenched in sweat. But I'm actually not even wanting to talk about the condition of the school. We know that it's run down. I had sewage running down out of my classroom last year. We had to send kids to another hallway to go to the bathroom because we didn't have bathrooms in the primary hallway. What I'm actually wanting to talk to you guys about is what happened before I started teaching at Inlet View. I was a substitute teacher back in November of 2018 out in Eagle River. My own kids go to school at Eagle River Elementary, and I was in the building when we had the big earthquake. The building literally started falling down around us. I watched light fixtures fall down. We escorted kids out of the building. The front facade off the building was sloughing off, and had a second grader say, Mr. Allen, am I gonna die? And nothing prepares you for that. So I'm urging you to go forward with the design. I'm not even at the school anymore. I'm actually teaching out at Eagle River now. And the reason that I'm urging you to go forward is because moving those kids from Eagle River Elementary to 3 different elementary schools in a last minute because of an emergency, they got sent to Birchwood Elementary, they got sent to Fire Lake Elementary, Birchwood Elementary, Homestead Elementary, and Ravenwood Elementary. I was substitute teaching during that time, and so I actually was one of the lucky people who was able to go and see all of the students. The staff and the students are just now starting to recover from emergency mode, being sent 7 sheets to the wind. So my concern is that if you don't move forward, at some point the building's going to fall apart, because it's going to happen. It's in very poor condition. And we're going to end up with the same situation that Fort Richardson is having, J-Bear is having right now with Ursa Major. Those kids at the beginning of the school year, they were expecting to go to that school. Now they're split to 3 different schools throughout the school district on base. Please don't let that happen to Inlet View.
Thank you for your testimony. There are no questions? Please state your name, spell it, and let me know if you're an individual or group.
Okay. My name's Bonnie Diarman. Do you need me to spell it?
Please.
Dearmoun, and I'm speaking as an individual tonight.
Thank you. Proceed.
Okay. I'm an Inlet View alumna. I student taught at Inlet View. I'm a parent of 2 at Inlet View, and I live 4 houses from Inlet View. I was also on the building design committee for what feels like a very long time. The new school and the playground were thoughtfully planned. They were planned with the neighbors when they joined. We invited a few more neighbors to join, and it resulted in some wonderful designs that are now shown here. We have a wonderful playground that has sun and is not in shade. We have more green space, and we really got to know our neighbors. It was uncomfortable at first, but I could tell you where their children go to school. I could tell you their jobs. I could tell you their dogs. So it has cohesed us, however uncomfortable it was. And we came together and we designed the school that's in front of you. And to some, it's not perfect. To me, I cannot wait. I'm very excited. I'm excited to have a school where my children can drink the water, they can flush the toilets, and they can play on a safe playground. And they won't get hit by a car on the way to school, hopefully, because they're safe crossings for pedestrians. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Milo Anderson, Miloandersen. I support Inlet View for the school bond, and I would like to have a new school. Some of the floors are falling apart. We had to put up duct tape and stuff to keep them from. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Hello, my name is Hella Crosby, HellaCrosby.
Hello, my name is Jojo McCumulesky, JoJoMCCUE-MOLESKY.
We are both sixth graders at Inlet View Elementary, and we would love for the Inlet View school bond to pass.
The reasons why are, if you look up at the ceiling, there's water dripping from the walls and stuff.
And the girls' bathroom has one out-of-order bathroom because of the sewage.
We would also like to have trees on the site because it provides a calm and relaxed vibe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner McKee, do you have a question?
I do.
I think she has a question for you.
So I have a question for you both. Since you currently attend the school, would you prefer to be bused off site to attend another location, or would you prefer to stay in the current building?
I think it would be current building because I don't really want to ride a bus off because that would also encourage climate change, kind of.
Yep, same with her, I agree.
Do you have any concerns about your safety attending the current school while the new building is being constructed?
Not really, as long as there's a fence between them so the kids don't really run into the other site.
Yeah.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. Hi there. I think you know. State your name, spell it for the record.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Lois Epstein, Loisepstein, and I am representing Friends of Inlet View Elementary School. So I request 5 minutes. Good evening. Thank you for your service on the Urban Design Commission. I am an Alaska licensed engineer named Lois Epstein, and I'm a small business owner and one of the founders of Friends of Inlet View Elementary School, an organization with over 150 community members who have concerns about locating the rebuilt Inlet View School on the south side of the grounds. I live near but not adjacent to Inlet View, and I was approached by those living closer to the school to help review the proposed design because I have expertise in ground and surface water and transportation. I have a strong interest in Inlet View because I regularly walk through the schoolyard and I care about good design in my neighborhood. What you need to know as design experts is simple. First, as you know by now, the Anchorage School District did not involve neighbors who were unconnected to students at the school, a major stakeholder group, until many months after the Anchorage School District made the decision to build on the south side of the site. When I asked the architect, Mr. Burrell, why the community was not involved early on, that's planning 101. You want to get all the stakeholders involved as early as possible. Two of us were told by Mr. Burrell that the school district and he did not think the plans would be controversial, and therefore people were not involved. While the Building Design Committee may have worked hard on the design, it did not include any neighbors without children in the school until over a year after the committee was constituted, and we did not know about public comment opportunities. As a second key point, once the decision was made by ASD to not relocate students during construction, that dictated a highly problematic site design which would harm the neighborhood in multiple ways. Those harms include, and we haven't heard this figure tonight, 23% less usable green space, worse traffic congestion than with the current school, and that's been confirmed by the Anchorage Traffic Department. Decreased safety for students walking to school from the east side because they would cross the school parking lot. That's part of the design. The main entrance to the neighborhood would become a giant parking lot with dirty snow piles and noisy snow removal. extensive shadowing of the grounds, meaning that ice and snow would remain much longer than currently, and the real possibility of increased groundwater entering homes in the new school, presenting new liability concerns for ASD. I am sorry to say that while the design might meet all necessary standards at a very minimal level, it is a poor choice for an urban location in Anchorage in 2022. This does not have to be the case, however. With the failure of the 2022 Anchorage School Bond, there now is time to allow the entire community to weigh in on the design, which was not the case when the South Side design was presented to neighbors as a done deal. There is time for ASD to develop a North Side design or a school remodel plan prior to construction, which only can occur following bond passage. With declining student enrollment in Anchorage, an Inlet View remodel plan should be on the table because it would cost less than a new school. The UDC should not accept such a poor design for this $30 million plus investment by ASD. Our neighborhood wants high quality design. Such a design would utilize principles of northern design and would be sensitive to the neighborhood context. These two parameters are contained in ASD's elementary school educational specifications, yet they were essentially ignored by ASD and its contractors, as discussed in my written comments submitted before the March 9th UDC meeting, where the proposed design was not approved. I would like to address those who say there are only a handful of residents who oppose the proposed design and that they all live on the south side of the school. Absolutely false. I submitted copies of 2 letters to you sent to the Anchorage School Board and the superintendent. One letter from November 2021 and one from September 2022. The letters question the proposed south side design, providing substantive concerns. The letters were signed by 114 and 110 Anchorage residents respectively, most from South Addition, with 160 unique email signatories. And do not be fooled by a map of support for the design compiled by supporters, as the text distributed by them mischaracterized opponents' views. Please do not approve this design. With the bond failure, the Anchorage School District has the opportunity to develop a design on the north side of the Inlet View grounds, found to be optimal for the school in 1957 for the reasons that still apply today. 50-year decision for our community. On a personal note, I feel for the students that are there now, but as an engineer, I think the sewage and the water and the security issues all could be dealt with at a reasonable cost. Thank you.
I think we have a question for you, Commissioner Renewal.
Good evening. So I have a question for you regarding, you were saying that you were not involved early on in the public commentary process. So how many meetings have you had the opportunity to attend and be involved with the design team and comment on this design?
I looked at the long list over there, and there's only a few of them. And when we were able to comment, it was, at the end of the Building Design Committee meeting, maybe 2 or 3 of them after we knew in September of 2021 that they were going to include the public. So for a full year, they met. They made a decision to move forward with the South Side design. By April of 2021, they still didn't tell the community about it until the September 2021 meeting. So only since last September, so just a year now. And ever since the public has known about it, there's been enormous amounts of concerns. I've been amazed how many people have signed these letters raising concerns.
Okay, thank you. So then I guess my follow-up question to that would be, it's my understanding that since March, there was additional meetings held, additional opportunities for the public to be involved. Was that your experience? And were you able to attend those meetings?
We did, and we documented things, and we weren't listened to. That's the unfortunate reality.
Okay. When you say you weren't listened to, what were the specific concerns you had, and how did you feel that they were not addressed? And I ask this, is there a particularly long list, or in the interest of getting to the people who would like to, are we talking a list of 20 things, or are we talking a handful of things here?
Just a handful of things. But I would say, and I don't feel that comfortable speaking for the two new members of the Building Design Committee who also shared my concerns, but they felt that they were not given enough time in the two meetings that they were involved to fully express their concerns, and they were, at the beginning of the second meeting, they were already told that everything was considered and their input didn't affect any changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a question for you from Commissioner Cox.
Good evening. I commend you on your courage on this very divisive issue. The sneers and jeers behind you, I'm sure it only motivates you further. My question is in regards to how has the community been in regards to this divisive issue? Do you feel like you have been listened to by the design team and the community and given adequate time to, it seems like you represent, what was it, 107 residents at least who signed in support for the Friends of Inlet View Elementary, who they do want a new school that has obviously had a lot of deferred building maintenance, and but they just went in on a different end of the site, or the original end of the site. Do you feel like, and is there, of course, the documentation to support that you have been listened to, any alterations or adjustments where you could say, well, that was causation because of our comment towards whatever we wanted different, whether
not at all. We are concerned about the loss of green space, and we were told that they would reduce some of the parking space, but the amount of usable space would still not be enhanced because the additional green space in that area is not usable by either the community or by students. In terms of groundwater, we've raised that a lot, and we've only been given surface water, stormwater solutions. We have not been able to obtain a cost of what it's going to require to have the infiltration system built, and there's the possibility that infiltration system will make things worse because it will mound up the groundwater towards the neighbors, but also towards the school. So this is, these are very serious, very technical issues. As I said, I'm a licensed engineer, and, we've had to do public information requests, and some of them have been answered, some of them haven't. But in terms of meaningful changes, once they made the decision, I have checked with other planners and other architects and other engineers. The early decision that was made to keep the students at the school led to all later decisions. So any input that we've been able to provide since then has been tweaking at the edges. They've been very, very small changes, and you've heard some of them tonight.
So this will be my last question. In my line of business, there's this term called value proposition. I've heard a lot of contrary comments where it seems as if the side that you're representing is unable to be appeased by whatever the design team presents. So is there a sentence or two of what could be done in order for you and the organization you represent to be pleased with this design?
We've thought a lot about that, and we think the design has such serious flaws that if you're going to locate it on the south side, there's not an easy way to fix anything to address these concerns.
Okay, thank you. That ends my questions.
Thank you. We actually do have another question from Commissioner Cash.
Yes, thank you. My question is this. After all the litany of things that you've described that are faulty in your mind with regard to the site and the design, is the single driving factor the greatest concern the location to the south rather than keeping it on the north? Would you confirm that?
I would say the location and the worsening traffic.
One item.
I'm sorry. I've heard people signed the letter with both those factors.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think that concludes the questions for you. Thanks
Thank you
for your
very
testimony.
much.
Hello. Please state your name, spell it, and let me know if you're a
Robert
group or an
Bundy.
individual.
Robert Bundy, individual, Robert Bundy. As a resident of the community, having lived less than a block from Inlet View for the last 40 years, my kids went to Inlet View, my grandkids went to Inlet View. I'm a strong, strong supporter of the redesign as proposed. First of all, the good professionals, the many professionals that have looked at this, except apparently one, seem to think that this is a very good design, and your staff has concluded that it meets all the requirements and ought to be approved. The effect of the construction of the children and the neighbors, it's required, the regulations require that that be considered. It was considered, and the regulations require that any potential negative effects be mitigated to the extent feasible or possible, and the staff concluded that was done. The staff has concluded that all of the objections raised by the various people have been met, and they've thought about it carefully. These people have been complaining about it for months and months and months, and the staff has gone over the top and looking at everything, reviewing it again and again and again. For all the time that I've been aware that this has been going on, I've attended community council meetings, various other meetings, and I've seen many of the same issues raised again and again, allegations made that this wasn't done, that wasn't done, letters sent out to everybody in the community that contained misrepresentations about what was done, and at every meeting there seems to be another issue that comes up. It's like playing whack-a-mole. Every time there's a new separate thing, it's the seismic, no, it's the drainage, no, it's the shadow, no, it's the traffic, and every time the staff goes and they examine it and they look at it carefully and adjustments are made or not made and it's taken care of. I was a lawyer for 50 years, and I can tell you that if I wanted to prevent any school from being built on that thing, I would take the tactic that the cruelly, ironically named Friends of Inlet View have taken. That is, raise every conceivable little thing and delay it, and then nothing will happen, and the precious green space where you can walk your dog will remain, and no school will be built, and the kids will suffer for it, and I think we've had enough of it, and I urge you to approve this. Thank you.
Hold on, Mr. Bundy. Thank you for your testimony. I think we have a question for you from Commissioner McKee here.
Hi. So you live adjacent to the school.
Well, I live on 12th Avenue, about 6 houses down from the school on 12th Avenue.
And so when did you first hear about, and what method by which were you informed that there was a plan to do a site development?
Boy, I couldn't even tell you that because I would spend time at the school sometimes to pick up my grandson, and who at that time was little enough where he had to have somebody pick him up. And I heard talk about it, and then it was at least, 8, 9 months ago that I heard about it. I mean, it wasn't something, I knew that the school needed to be rebuilt, and I was happy to hear that things were being done, I'm not a design professional, so I didn't want to be on the committee.
Did you receive one of the mailers or a door hanger?
I'm sorry?
Did you receive one of the mailers notifying you of the process or one of the door hangers placed on your property?
I'm sure I did. Okay. I mean, I can't tell you that I remember that particularly, but I never felt that that I was somehow being left out.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell it.
Hi, I'm here as an individual, Anna Bosin, ANNA-BOSIN. I'm an adjacent neighbor to Inlet View Elementary. I live 3 houses down on N Street. And I moved to the neighborhood in January 2020. And as a single parent, 100% of the time, it was important to me to have a neighborhood school that my daughter could not only go to for her education, but also for the before-after care that is provided there by Campfire. So that provides me with the opportunity to go to work for a full day, and so the idea that she might have to be bused somewhere is out of the question for me as it stands right now. I also want to address some of the things I've heard from my neighbors, many of whom have themselves stated that their children went to new schools. They had theirs. Our kids deserve it too. I also want to caution them that if no school is built, it's not going to stay the same. Condos or low-income housing or portables for another homeless shelter could be built there, so be careful what you wish for. If there's not a new school there, that property is valuable. It will be built. It will have the same concerns and issues that you bring up regarding drainage or traffic or whatever. So we should be all coalescing around having a neighborhood school that we've all invested in for our community and our future generations. I also want to leave you with a few quotes from mothers of children who were murdered at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. I follow a couple of these parents, and the school bond failed, and then the Uvalde school shooting happened a little over a month later. And I want these parents to be in your thoughts. Kimberly Garcia is the mother of Amarie. Amarie's dream was to be an art teacher. Art was her passion. Clay was her favorite. Her favorite color was lavender. She loved sunflowers. Vanilla bean frappe from Starbucks was her favorite drink. She says, I remember that day standing there waiting, hoping, praying she'd run out of that building. For hours, my daughter was missing. Hours. I had never been so lost in my entire life. Losing a child is a parent's worst nightmare, but losing a child the way I lost my child really does something to me. The thoughts that run through my mind, God, I wish no parent to go through what I'm going through. I get sick to my stomach. I get dizzy. I lose my appetite. This isn't fair.
Thank you for your testimony. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Geddes, and I live on
Okay, I'm so sorry. I think we need to take a quick pause.
Okay.
Sincerest apologies. Please start over.
Good evening. My name is Mary Geddes. I've lived
Can
in
you spell
Alaska.
your last name for me? Thank you.
Last name is Geddes. I'm speaking as an individual. I've lived in Alaska since 1984, most of that time in Anchorage. For 17 years, I've lived just one house away from Inlet View Elementary. As a property owner, as a community member, a very close neighbor, I ask you to act tonight and approve the plan for the desperately needed rebuild of the school, as your professional staff have recommended. Speaking as someone who pays equally close attention to civic matters and to the fairness of a public process, I have zero complaints about this process. I have personally observed that there's been opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for input. In fact, I have heard that core group of fives again and again. I've read their letters, I've read their columns, I've heard them speak. Frankly, I've heard them abuse the opportunities for public input, but it's clear what they want. They want the new school positioned on top of the old school period. But you know what? While these folks can certainly express their opinion, they're not entitled to that one particular outcome. Community needs must take priority over individual preference, and all of the very legitimate concerns which have been identified have been sufficiently addressed in the plan. I am satisfied. Please permit the school district to do what they need to do to take care of our kids. I have two other points I want to make. One is that I had an opportunity today to review, as Mr. Bundy said, the ironically named Friends of Inlet View group, and I see that they attached 110 names to a letter rehashing the positions they've articulated over many months. Having looked at that list, I wondered, who are these people? Where do they actually live? And I had an opportunity, having to kill a couple of hours, to look up voter registration records. Here's what I learned, that there are at least 15 people on that list who aren't registered in Anchorage. Maybe they're registered someplace else, but they're not registered. So I couldn't identify where they actually live because I was using the voter registration registry, which reflects, by the way, recent involvement in elections in Anchorage. There were 15 people there. Additionally, not registered anywhere close to Inlet View neighborhood were another 24. And there are people out in the UMed district, East 43rd, College Village, Douglas Drive, other sections of Turnagain. These people have a right to express their opinion, but they're not close neighbors of the school, and they don't have a dog in the fight, and I would ask you to consider that.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I don't see that we have any questions for you, but thank you.
Thank you.
State your name, spell it for the record. I'm sorry, I sound like a...
I can do it at this point. My name is John Bittner, J-O-N-B as in boy, I-T-T-N-E-R. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I know what you're thinking. It looks like there's only a few testifiers left. Oh no, am I done already? You wish this could go on forever. As a parent of 2 Inlet View students, I fully understand how you feel there. It feels like we've been doing this forever, Groundhog Day. My wife has been testifying at these committee hearings for a very long time. Here's what I'll tell you. It's easy for people who don't have kids in this school to tell you to take all the time in the world while the children are learning in schools that are classrooms that have sewage, that have broken down facilities, that have not a real facility for them to learn in. If that's not your child in there, yeah, sure, let's take another 3 years to figure this out. Let's take all the time in the world. But as someone whose kids are now graduating out of Inlet View, it's too late for my children. It is. And I love Inlet View. I'm a huge fan. I'm a graduate. My family's gone to Inlet View for many years. My cousins, my brothers, we've all gone there, and it's a wonderful school, but it's old. It hasn't been fixed in forever. And we've fought this fight, we've danced this dance. You've heard here tonight. What the problem isn't that there wasn't an opportunity to give feedback. The problem is, the feedback is they want to burn the whole thing down and start fresh and take another few years and just kick the can down the road indefinitely. That's not a friend of anybody. It's certainly not a friend of Inlet View. So I don't know how much more I can tell you this. I know you've heard this tonight. There may be hundreds of signatures on a letter somewhere, but there's hundreds of people in this room. And there's hundreds of people that I'm showing up to this process telling you the same thing. Our kids deserve a school. They deserve a good school. They deserve a school that is up to code. They deserve a school that they can learn in. And you have the power to make that happen. We've talked this to death. This isn't a minor change. There's nothing left here. There's no fundamental seismic difference between north and south. I'm a geologist. You don't move 50 feet and find granite, right? It's all aquifer under there. There's all, it's all bootlegger cove formation. This is a very well-designed process. It's been going for years. Nobody was blindsided by this. It's made the news. There's politicians in the room. Once they find out about something, how hidden could it really be? We've got it, right? So now you just have to make a call. Do you want to do what's right for these kids? Do you want to give them the opportunity to have a school they deserve? Or do we want to do another study and another thing and another thing until we run out of the wherewithal or the ability to do what we need to do? That's all there is to it. And I really strongly urge you, please, just make this happen. Enough's enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. No questions?
Hello, my name is Perry Grover, P-A-R-R-Y-G-R-O-V-E-R. Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My wife Linda and I live closer to Inlet View Elementary School than anyone else. We live on the corner of 13th and N Streets, directly across the street from the front entrance and the south entrance of the school. We see people coming and going every day. We see parents picking up their kids, dropping off their kids. We see the snow being plowed every time it's plowed because the parking lots are directly across from our property. How long have we been doing this? 42 years across from Inletville Elementary School. I'm a bit upset with the lady in red hair. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I think she's raised some issues that are taken out of context, but there are two that are really red herrings, and you need to know this. Number one, she said there's going to be a mountain of snow and ice with the parking lot. We live next to that parking lot, and I can tell you that the school district plows it every time it snows, and they have to plow a big pile of snow. When time permits, they bring in trucks and graders and remove it. That's not going to change. That's the way it is today. There'll still be a big pile of snow, and they'll come in and remove it. So this new design really doesn't significantly impact the snow and ice issue. The other issue that's a red herring, and this is even a bigger red herring, and I've heard the opponents say this over and over again, traffic. It's a traffic problem. Remember, we live right in front of the school. We see the people coming, bring their kids, and dropping them off for half an hour, maybe in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon. There's cars on the street. We have never, in the 42 years we've lived there, ever been unable to drive down the street to get to our property or leave our property, even when the school's in session and being dropped off. It's not an issue. But here's the other thing. If you look at a site map of the property, there's only two very short streets leaving our area of the neighborhood, 12th Avenue and 13th. They're less than half a block long. There's nothing that we can do to change that. L Street's right in front. It's very busy. There is no 14th Avenue exit to L Street. There is no 15th Avenue to exit. You can only enter the neighborhood on 15th. So this design is not going to impact traffic. The traffic will be the way it is today. There may be a few more parents bringing a few more kids, but the impact is minimal. That's another red herring issue. I urge you to approve the design. Excuse me.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and I am going to give some bad news. We must recess again.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're back online. Please come up, state your name, and spell it for the record. Let me know if you're an individual.
Hello, I'm an individual, Karen Lease, L-E-I-S.
Thank you. Proceed.
Hello. As a nearby neighbor of Inlet View Elementary who bought my home at 15th and M Street in 1981, I'm the mother of 5 children, 4 of whom attended Inlet View Elementary. I'm a master gardener and resident who walks around the neighborhood daily, and I care about our community and our school. Unfortunately, the Anchorage School District and architect from Envision did not consider all major stakeholders and conducted meetings in secret in violation of the State of Alaska's Open Meetings Law. I am writing to request that the Urban Design Commission reject the major site application for Inlet View Elementary School because it has the potential to harm the health and safety for children, teachers, staff, and visitors who have to cross shaded, icy lots multiple times daily, and it will further disrupt traffic in our neighborhood. We have the time to do things correctly, and the members of the Urban Design Commission are the people to make this decision. I do not have anything to gain from my public comment, as I do not live in the close proximity of the schoolyard, although I can hear the children playing outside and the school bells from my porch. I do care that the people can be hurt and suffer from this design. The architect has a little shadow study movie that runs a few seconds. It looks like it supports what I know to be true about ice and shadows in Alaska. Their answer is, we paid for a shadow study, but that's only the first step. We need an actuarial study from people who know how to quantify this. If you take 300 children and 10 staff who cross the ice to come and go 3 times, that's their arrival, departure, a morning recess, and an afternoon recess, that's 6 trips across the ice. Multiply 310 people by 6 trips by the number of days that there's ice between the door and the destination. Health insurance employees figure risk like this every day to establish the costs of insurance. They can probably predict the number of broken arms, legs, sprains, back injuries, and concussions over the next 50 years. They do it to protect themselves from monetary losses. But as community members, we should concern ourselves with the suffering which we are causing by this bad design. Put the shadow in the street on the north side of the building, on the north side of the lot, where the cars can drive through it. They have studded tires, and their drivers can make choices where they drive. Our kids have to play where they're told. The architect just answered this design flaw by placing the playground equipment farther from the doors. I just tried to get out of my neighborhood at 15th and M Street a week ago, and I was stopped for 3 lights. 3, and 4 cars got out.
Thank you very much. Unless someone requests that you speak, you must be done with your testimony. I do appreciate it, though, and I think we got a lot of information from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Please come forward, state your name, spell it for the record. Let me know if you're here as an individual or a group.
Hi there. My name's Deborah Hansen. I'm here as an individual. My last name is Hansen. Good design is not a popularity contest. Fortunately, we here in Anchorage have Title 21. I was here in the 80s when all the debates were going down. I went through the public hearing, some of the public hearings for some of the issues of Title 21. And I appreciate that the Urban Design Commission is here to protect us from badly placed, unattractive, inappropriate buildings. I have been told several times when I complained about the lack of public process that the only reason I heard about it at all was due to the Urban Design Commission. So I appreciate getting the postcard a year ago that let us know even about this building was going on. One of the things that concerns me is the half-truths that are told, sometimes lies about what's going on with the process and what's happened. And some of it I know is different perceptions from different people. But I noticed even in this drawing here that shows that the school, my house is on there, but it's stretched out to look like a 2-story monolithic house. And it doesn't look like that. And it leaves out all the large currant trees that are there that actually will shade the school during the day. That's the kind of thing that makes a difference. I think the details are in design. But placing a 30-foot 2-story school on 5 feet of additional fill, 89 feet from a 13-foot tall house is not a good design. It doesn't comply with Northern design directives that are in Title 21. It doesn't even comply with the school district elementary standards. And I put all that in my testimony to you. I even have a quick and dirty little sketch about how to make the parking lot safer. That's the kind of input we wanted to have with the architect. But we were told time and time again, and it's recorded in the August meeting, that the ASD is not going to make any changes to the design. You all are the only people who can make any changes, can make that parking lot, which they say they keep reducing the spaces on, but is the same size. It hasn't reduced at all, and it's one of the major reasons that we have over 22% decrease in open space and green space on the lot, which is a big deal for the neighbors. Anyway, the traffic flow, concentrating on the traffic flow in Inlet Place doesn't make the traffic flow any better. I don't see much about this except the fact that it is a new school, that it enhances the neighborhood. Title 21 is a minimum design standard. You're looking at a building that by the time it's built, it's going to cost between $40 and $50 million. It's a major public building. It's a centerpiece of our neighborhood. It should be the best design, not the minimal design, not a huge parking lot facing our neighborhood. So please, you all can make the school district change their plans. We really hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any questions. Hi there. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Bittner, CharlotteBittner. I graduated from Inlet View, I think it was 3 years ago. I'm a freshman now at West High. And I've got to admit, like, it was very hard not to get the message that Inlet View was being remodeled. My friend Ilsa, she and her brother graduated, like, with me, and they still were on the mailing list for the pamphlet that told us what was going on, how to get to the meetings, all this stuff, and they live nowhere near Inlet View. So it was very accessible information, and when I was at Inlet View, it was kind of scary. Like, the sprinkler systems wouldn't work every once in a while, so we were advised to get out of there as fast as possible before it reached our room. Some of the ceilings were dripping water whenever it rained. It was really cold in the winter because some of the heating systems didn't work. And, let's see, there were cracks in the gym floor, some cracks in the walls, and on the outside, on one of the walls, I remember me and my friends went to look at this giant shelf of moss that was growing on there. So I would really like it if we could get a new school for, not my brother because he's graduating this year, but for all the people that come after us. It would be really nice. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't think we have any questions. Don't forget to state your name, spell it for the record.
I won't. My name is Kevin McCoy. It's McCoy. I'm here as an individual. I've lived at the corner of 11th and N Street, which is a block from Inlet View, for 32 years. I'm here to speak in support of the replacement project. And I think I just want to say that we're here because of these children. We're here because of these children. And I think it's important that we pay attention to what that young woman just said. It's amazing. I've carefully reviewed these plans. You could not live in this neighborhood and not know about this process. You heard about it. People participated. People have been walking door to door to talk to people about it. I fully support the plans, and I'm particularly impressed with the care and the responsiveness that the planners have exhibited and responded to the concerns that were raised by the neighbors. I think the change is sometimes hard for people, but I feel that the opposition to this design is very short-sighted because it makes the perfect the enemy of the good. First, the planners have responded to the concerns, and you've heard this tonight, moving the school 20 feet, doing the studies, doing the shadow studies. These are all good faith efforts to respond to concerns that the community had. And I think they deserve credit. They're the professionals. They know this stuff. They've spent a lot of time looking at it. I don't know why you don't endorse it. Second, and for me probably most important, is that the planners place the children first. There's been testimony about the resilience of children and how magic they are, and let's just forget about COVID-19. I had a daughter that attended Chugach Elementary when they did the remodel, and she was bused to Fort Rich School. We had to arrange childcare. It was difficult to get to school events. We had to go out there. It was an imposition, but we were fortunate. We were privileged. We had the resources. We had two parents. We had two cars. We could spell each other. Not all families are that lucky. Some people are quite a bit less lucky, and I think for single parents it became a real challenge. It was hard for their kids to fully participate in the school process. It was a struggle for them to even pay for the necessary childcare. You have an opportunity now to give these kids a great educational opportunity while they watch the school be built. One of the people that came up here and talked about yes, but, you're hearing that, the last few witnesses that came before it was all yes, but, and this is not a good enough plan. As if these guys don't know what they're doing. You know that's not the case. Your duty tonight is to endorse this proposal so that we move on for these children. So I urge you in the strongest terms that I can to please endorse this program and do it now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your testimony. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Patricia O'Gorman. I'm here as an individual. I want to speak in favor of you voting for this new school. I'm a parent of a former Inlet View student. I'm a former school nurse staff at Inlet View. I was the school nurse there years ago. I'm also been a neighbor in the neighborhood since 1979, and during COVID walked neighborhood children to help working parents once a week. So I've been pretty involved in the school since from the beginning of my time being a resident there. I think that there's a lack of understanding maybe on the term Friends of Inlet View. It seems like a misnomer to us. And I am pleased that Mary Geddes brought to your attention the information that I am aware of also, that some of the people who have signed that are not residents of South Addition community area. And so I question their legitimacy in being signing on something, trying to make that group seem like they have more support than they really legitimately have from my point of view. I have been involved in the meetings. There were some concerns I had having to do with the height of the building, which was addressed and changed. I was one of the people who about a year ago at a South Addition Community Council meeting had concerns about how many parking spots were available, because there are a number of families that really do walk kids to Inlet View. There are a lot of walkers at Inlet View. That number was reduced. It may be too much for some people, but that in fact was a concern I had, and that was addressed, and they were reduced. I do understand they have to stick to certain standards, but I would ask you to vote in favor of moving forward with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Well, good evening. Good evening. My name is Martin Hansen. I'm speaking for myself. I had a carefully arranged speech, and there's a little late-breaking news, so I'm reorganizing. Contact with Representative Harriet Drummond, and you need to know that Representative Fields misrepresented the legislature's decision regarding ASD funds. Representative Drummond, who, due to redistricting, may represent the Inlet View neighborhood, texted tonight that the legislature did not allocate anything for Ives in View School. We asked for the Capital Committee to allocate funding for Ives at $32 million, but that did not happen. So I wanted to make sure I got that in before I went back to my speech. Could I hand in an exhibit?
Yes, please. My apologies. I'm asking a lot of questions.
Now, I am a friend of Inlet View School. I am also the closest neighbor because I live there's a school fence between my house and the school on Inlet Place, and I've lived there since 1986. I was going to start my testimony by saying that nothing has changed since our March meeting. The design was made and finalized in secret. It's been changed a bit, but merely tweaked. The two-story building will still cast a shadow. And as a former Boys and Girls Club soccer coach, I would like to point out that Anchorage soccer players will lose one of the few big flat soccer fields with room for two teams to practice because there's going to be a school building on it. And traffic on 13th will be intolerable because it's a steep, icy hill, and all the traffic will be going up that hill, and every winter we see cars not making it and traffic backing up. But I also see a positive side. I have been approached and have approached neighbors who have vastly differing views on how the school should be built, and we've had genuine, friendly discussions. Give us the opportunity to continue these discussions. Please ask the Anchorage School District to come back with a plan that includes the Anchorage School District's design requirements for an elementary school, and it includes more neighborhood input. We have time to do it, and we have time to do it right. I think a 60-year-old school that should be here for 60 years deserves a lot of consideration, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Don't see any questions. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? If there is no one else in the room, we do have a telephone testimony. So we will wait for that phone call.
Please do not dial a 1 when dialing this number.
Hello, this is the Urban Design Commission calling for a public testimony in case 2022-0024. Are you testifying as an individual or representing a group?
As an individual, please.
Individuals have 3 minutes to testify. Please state your full name for the record and you can begin.
My name is Michael Schechter. Last name is spelled S-C-H-E-C-H-T-E-R. I live in the Inlet View zoned area. I have 2 children who will be school-aged next year. I don't want to repeat a lot of the great things that were said tonight. I think the school district and the design team have done a great job of responding to a lot of the issues that have been raised by the neighbors. A doctor, the doctor who spoke earlier, I think, really hit the nail on the head in terms of, people are resistant to change. This is a 30-foot school building being built in a 30-foot district. Everything in that district could be, right around the school, can be 30 feet tall. The school itself can be 50 feet tall. We need to look at the standards that the school is supposed to meet. And one of the major opponents of the school as it's designed now said it herself, and I encourage all of you to listen back to this meeting, where she said it meets the standards. Now, I would argue, and I think many would argue, that the design team has gone above and beyond and done a wonderful job. And let me give you a bit of background on myself. I am a practicing attorney. I have been for 18 years. Much of that has been on land use issues, projects of all scopes and sizes. And one of the things I've done in my career is that I taught the required land use law class for the Masters in Urban Planning program at the University of Washington. So I'm not talking about this from a novice or rookie point of view. I'm very well versed in these things. The Anchorage Planning Department, the staff, they are not shrinking violets. When they have approved and recommended something, they have shaken the project and made sure that it meets the requirements. A lot of folks here are talking about secret meetings and all sorts of things done in the dark. The code requires one meeting, one community meeting, one community council meeting, and the community meeting with 3 weeks' notice. That's it. This project has gone well beyond that. It meets the standards. It more than meets the standards. And it provides an important school building that will help anchor this area and allow for the children of this area to have appropriate facilities, the kinds of facilities that keep their parents in town instead of fleeing Anchorage like they're doing. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Have a good night. Thank you.
If there's no one else wishing to speak, then would the petitioner like to come up and use the remaining 534? for rebuttal. Don't forget to restate your name, just so that we know who's speaking.
My name's Tom Feneseff, Fenoseff, Senior Director of Capital Planning and Construction. So we've heard a lot tonight. I think we've, more so the proponents of this has done an excellent job in representing the project in whole. So I know a lot of the questions that have come up and some specifics. I'd like to turn that over to our designer, Paul, to address those.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Paul Burrell. Burrell, spelled B-A-R-I-L. I'm the principal architect with Envision Architecture, who's responsible for leading the design team and working with the district and the community on this project. For our rebuttal tonight, honestly, I don't think I need to go through a whole list. I have a whole list of notes. Peter Briggs, our landscape architect, also has a whole list of notes. But I don't think I need to go through everything, because I think you've heard everything from the community tonight that is really our rebuttal. We've been open, we've been upfront from day one. The community involvement has been included from day one of this project, and we've shown that where we had visioning workshops. That's where we started, and that included community input. And our BDC, the Building Design Committee, was constructed of 10 people originally. And to clarify that was intentionally built through district standards, where the Building Design Committee is made up of individuals that represent all the different stakeholders involved in a school and in a neighborhood and in a community. And we had 30% actually. 3 of the 10 members were actually neighbors within the adjacent school property. So in addition to all the other stakeholders that are involved within a school project. So that Building Design Committee was representing the community as a whole. One other thing that I want to just highlight, and then we'll leave it open for you guys to ask us questions, is the traffic. The traffic study that we've completed, we actually completed 2 traffic studies, and then the second one was a more detailed traffic impact analysis that was requested on the original condition of approval by the MOA traffic engineer. We have provided that since then, and you guys have seen in your supplemental packet that the MOA traffic engineer is in approval of our analysis and the design as it's created. So all the concerns you've heard tonight between traffic, surface drainage, northern design, shadowing, it's been stated that it's a lot of false, hollow narratives. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have to help strengthen our case tonight and to get this project approved.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question from Commissioner McKee.
I always have the questions. Hi.
Hello.
So based on public testimony, we heard that there were some concerns about seismic on the north side versus the south side. Somebody mentioned that 3 studies had been done. Could you please describe what seismic studies were done and what the results were?
Certainly. So when we started this project, we were awarded this project in 2014, and one of the very first things we did was a seismic evaluation study, and worked with Northern Geotech. That's who is on our design team for looking at the seismic study. And since then, with the original study, we've done additional 2 studies as this project's gone on from 2014 till now, because there's been lots of ebbs and flows in the project that have ranged from now, obviously, we're replacing the school now, but at certain times there was talk about just renovating. There was talks about completely getting rid of the school, and so different studies have been requested. We've provided those seismic studies, and all of those seismic studies have come back to conclude that the site is safe, even though it's in a higher seismic zone. The land has sloughed previously, and so after the sloughing of the land, that the land now is currently stable, and so there's no concerns from a seismic standpoint, and there's no different conditions from the north side of the site to the south side of the site. The entire site and the properties around the school sit in this sloughed-off area, so the seismic concerns there are no seismic concerns.
Thank you. I have another question. So we've also heard concerns about the water table and drainage and snow storage and snow management. So could you please describe what the drainage design is and what H&H studies have been done?
Certainly. So our surface drainage, obviously as part of the MOA building permit requirement process, we have to contain or maintain all of our surface drainage on site and deal with that in an appropriate manner. And so we have a combination of our drainage systems designed into the project, from berms to prevent water from escaping the property, to filled inlets at various locations that take the water actually to the municipal storm drain system so it doesn't percolate into the ground. And then we do have an infiltration system on the west side parking lot. So we have a combination of surface drainage mitigation efforts taking place in the design, but in all, they all maintain and don't allow the water to drain off the property, which is currently what's happening now. To everybody to the south, actually the southwest corner of the property, the way the site is designed to drain, it surface drains over the sidewalk and into the street gutter system. And so all the water flows on the surface to the south and the southwest. So all that would be mitigated and corrected with our drainage design.
Thank you. I have one other question. So because we do understand that this is a bonded project, it'll have to be approved. People have been discussing the cost difference. So was cost of a remodel with the cost of transporting and relocating the students and the delay, was a cost-benefit analysis done versus constructing on site, and what were those values?
So yes, a cost-benefit analysis was done not by our team, but by the ASD team, and that was through various levels, from board level to administration and staff level with capital planning and construction. So I can't speak to that tonight because I don't have those numbers in front of me, but they did perform those studies throughout the process since we started this project in 2014 when they looked at all the different options. And the quick summary, and Tom can maybe speak more to this, is that it was concluded that replacing the school was the best value and best interest for the community and the district.
So whenever we look at replacing or remodeling a school, doing a renovation, a cost-benefit analysis is part of that analysis. It normally starts with a project analysis report, or a PAR. And with the PAR, we look at typically 3 different scenarios. We look at a renovation or a building life extension, which is minor. The next step would be a renewal, and then a replacement. So over time, we've been looking at this project for a while. Actually, Inlet View has been on our capital improvement plan since at least 2004. So it definitely needs to be renovated or replaced. Over time, it typically goes from a renovation to the point where the cost-benefit analysis, the conclusion is it needs to be replaced. And that takes into account what future requirements we have to put into the building over the next 20 years versus what it will cost now to replace it. So just some rough numbers, we were looking at about $24 million to do the renovation, but if we were also to consider the next 20 years on this building, it would be an additional $12 million that weren't being addressed in unfunded needs. So if you look at, putting in $30 million versus $36 million over the rest of it, and then also you've got deferred maintenance that you'd be wiping out and you'd be starting over, so you'd have less deferred maintenance over the next 20 years. So, it's a complex cost analysis, but it's definitely something we look into, and is definitely more cost-effective to replace the school at this point.
Thank you. And then I have one last question, and that's that if the new school is constructed on site, what is the remediation plan for the existing building? What's your plan for that?
Sure, that's a good question. So the current construction plan and schedule would be a 1 school year and 2 summers is what the current discussions have taken place with the contractor that's on the team. And basically the first summer, they would start the site work. They would put up the construction barrier between the new school site and the existing school site. The kids would still have their existing school site, which basically cuts the site in half. They would have all of their asphalt play surfaces. The kindergarten play area would remain, all the basketball courts, the hopscotch, and then they would have some green space on the west side of the building. But the majority of the green space that they have now is where the new school would be constructed, and so they would put a construction barrier between the two. Kids would live on their side of the site. The construction would occur on the south side of the site for the school year, and then the following summer, kids would be out of school. They would demolish the old school, remediate the old school, and then the location of the old school, all the site work would occur for that location, which would be the ice rink and the new play field. And so all that would happen that second summer. And then if all goes on schedule, the hope would be that school would start again that August after 1 school year of construction.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. It looks like we have questions from Commissioner Nanalo.
Hello. So my question is a follow-up from some of the community members earlier, and you've already addressed some of those. And it sounds like since March you were able to address the issues with the shadows, you were able to address the issue of the height of the building, excuse me. And you also just recently addressed, just now in your testimony, the issue of traffic. The one remaining question I have for you that seems to be a point of contention for some of these community members is the location of the building. And now there has been significant testimony here tonight about busing children, and that is most likely not in the best interest of the students. But I suspect there were also other reasons why you chose your location, and I would really appreciate if you would go over those, because it really seems like a significant point of contention for some of these community members that it's not being placed on the north side where the current building is.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I'm happy to answer that. So you are right that one of the reasoning is to keep the kids on site and to not bus them to another location. But when we evaluated this with our building design committee and the capital planning and construction administrative team, we also looked at all the pros and cons. Part of the process actually entailed us, when we were looking at site location options for the building, we had, and it's all on our website, when we showed this to the community, we showed renditions or options of the building being on, like 3 different options of the building being on the north side of the lot, and then several other options with it being on the south side of the lot and on the east side, on the west side, in various locations, looking at all the pros and cons of site ingress and egress, pedestrian traffic safety for kids, viewing angles, looking at northern design for getting the proper daylight into the building. There's been a lot of talk about shadows on the playground, and that being a problem. But the reason why we did what we did was with the design was, and placing it where we placed it and orienting the building the way we did, was to get morning sun and afternoon sun from the south in all of the classrooms. So our classroom wing is on the south side of the building, and it's intentionally put there, in the orientation it's put there so the kids on the east side of the building get morning in the sun, or get sun in the morning, and the kids on the west side of the building get sun in the afternoon. And so they get sun when they're in school, which is primarily when they're there, most of their time, because their limited time on the recess and playground is 20 minutes 2 times a day. And so there was less concern about shadows where they're playing than because we were getting daylight in the building. So that's part of the northern design success, I think, of the design. So I guess I digress on that, but to get back to your specific question, those are the primary reasons. And then also, one of the other main reasons was putting the parking lot and the entrance on the east side of the property, which is where, when we looked at all the studies and the process of how the school operates, the school has changed since it was originally designed in the 70s, or excuse me, in the 50s. Where it was a neighborhood school. Now it's not just a neighborhood school. Now it's an IB program. It's a special charter type of school. People are coming from outside the neighborhood to the school, and so, but there are still students in the neighborhood that are walking. So from a pedestrian safety standpoint, we wanted the kids that live in the neighborhood to be able to walk to traffic, or walk to school without the vehicle traffic. So we put the vehicle traffic on the east side of the property, which we call the urban side of the property, which is where the traffic comes from. And
I think we need to pause. I was hoping that your sentence would be a little shorter. I'm sorry, we're off the live streaming again. Sorry to interrupt your thought. I hope you keep that in your head.
Keep that thought, yeah.
So,
I think we're pausing.
yeah.
We can't hear testimony right now. Sorry, just a moment.
Okay, quickly. No, I'm sorry. Please proceed.
Okay.
Well, everything's up and running.
So to finish my thought, which is actually a good time for us to pause, because Mr. Finisoff had pointed out to me that he actually wrote a letter to the Urban Design Commission on March 7th. It's in your packet, which addresses this specific question, and it tells you guys the process we went, talks about the process we went through and all the different reasons why we put the building on the south side of the lot. And there's 7 major bullet points listed in that letter.
Sorry, I'm trying. We have a few packets that have come through, so I'm trying to find the correct packet.
I can go through it real quick if that would be helpful.
Supplement 2, okay.
Just the highlights are capacity, lack of nearby facilities, which we talked about for relocating students, and then the disruption to students. Number 2, the inefficiencies with phased construction, so wanting to allow the contractor to have the full range of the site to be able to do work and not have to work in a school zone. So that was part of the reasoning for putting it on the south side. The convenience of maintaining school operations for the kids and within the community and the neighborhood. Number 4, the continuity and preventing disruption. So again, looking at the disruption issue. Number 5, building orientation and placement, which I talked about with daylighting and positioning of the building, and the entrance with the urban side of the site for the vehicle traffic, and then allowing the pedestrian traffic to be on the neighborhood side without traffic coming to and from the school. And then number 6, the 2-story building design, by positioning it on the south side, allowed us to have a smaller footprint, which allowed us then to gain back that green space on the north side. And then number 7, the parking lot and main entry, which I talked about.
So I guess then, just to clarify, the location of this building was thoroughly considered. It was not an arbitrary decision. There were several locations looked at, and this was determined as the best place to place this building for the host of reasons you just listed. Is that a correct assessment of this situation?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We actually have a question from Commissioner Sullivan.
Well, I think most of the questions were answered really fast at the end, but it's really a coincidence that I've been sitting here listening to everyone, and I just want to applaud the design team for making the south side a successful location for the building. I just, through the meeting, started noting what was successful about the south side without listening what you just say. And yes, it's maintaining the kids on site, it's maximizing natural light, it's creating 2 different entry points, one for the parents drop off, one for the bus. That's safety. It's a concern always in the schools. It's minimizing the volume but not impacting any specific neighbors with the massing. You're rotating the building in the east-west axis, and it's less massive to the neighbors. So I think that's great. You minimize the shadows. Your shadow study shows that most of the time is at the utility and the parking lot, the shadow, and in December 21st, it's long, but I guess the hill is going to make a long shadow anyway, I mean, the terrain. The building, you created the green areas by rotating an opportunity to have access to south playgrounds. So I just think that you guys did a great job, and I've been trying to not focus on the north side, and I was trying to figure out what was good about the south side and what you guys done. So thank you very much for caring about our community.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Nanalo, do you still have a question? I must have left you up there.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm good. Thank you. Good. That was a mistake.
Or me. Okay, does anyone else have a question?
Oh, I hope you guys do. I want to stay here longer. I really enjoy this.
Just for that. I'm just
You didn't say that last. No, I'm seriously. I really do actually enjoy this. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've done several major site plan reviews. And Ms. Sullivan's been on a couple of commissions, and I've had the experience of coming through and getting a major site plan review approved in less than 5 minutes because we did such a great job with our packet. And then I've had this one where this is like the longest major site plan review I've ever been involved with. But I love the process. So.
That makes a few of us. No. Sorry, So, okay, I think
humor, so,
since we don't have any other questions for you, we will now close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. May we have a motion? Are you writing it out? She's writing it out. She's writing it out. There it is. Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner McKee. Can you please state your motion?
I move to approve. I move in case 2022-0024 to approve the Inlet View Elementary School site plan subject to conditions 1 through 7 shown on pages 11 and 12 of the staff report.
Thank you. And it appears you have a second from Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner McKee, would you care to speak to your motion, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quickly?
Will she get to speak when we go to staff discussion, right?
Sorry. Commissioner Folland, I hear that you may have some questions and or things that you'd like to say. Would it be okay that we get through Commissioner McKee speaking to her motion before we go there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McKee?
Thank you. I intend to vote in support of case 2022-0024 to approve the Inlet View Elementary School site plan for the following reasons. The approval criteria for major site plan review includes condition 1, the site plan is consistent with any previously approved subdivision plat, plan development master plan, or any other precedent plan or land use approval. Previous studies in 2015 through 2017 resulted in the recommendation to replace the existing school building. There are no conflicts with the underlying plats or any other land use approval. The building is located outside of utility easements that run through the parcel, even with the change to the site plan moving the building 20 feet to the north. Condition 2, the site plan complies with all applicable development and design standards set forth in this title, including but not limited to the provisions in Chapter 21.04 zoning districts, Chapter 21.05 use regulations, Chapter 21.06 dimensional standards and measurements, and Chapter 21.07 development and design standards. Specifically 2104.060E zoning districts. The petition site is within the Public Lands and Institutions PLI district. An elementary school meets the purpose and intent of the PLI district. There are no district-specific standards. 2105.010E, Table of Allowable Uses. Inlet View Elementary School is a permitted use on the parcel allowed by right with a major site plan review. The application for major site plan review meets this standard. 21.05.040E, use-specific standards for elementary middle school. There are 8 use-specific standards, which are all met by the site plan. The 8 use-specific standards are the following. The purpose states the purpose of the use-specific standard to ensure compatibility of schools with surrounding neighborhoods and to minimize the impacts of school uses on adjacent properties. Standard 2, the approval process. The major site plan review follows Standard 2 for the approval process of a school with 10 or more students with a major site plan review. The parcel, Standard 3, which is site size. The parcel is 7.3 acres and meets requirements in Standard 3 to be 1 acre per 100 students. Standard 4, the setback. Standard 4 thus dictates that the setbacks of the underlying district apply and this use-specific standard is met. Standard 5, outdoor play space for elementary and middle schools. Standard 5 prescribes outdoor play space requirements of 2 square feet per 1 square foot of classroom space. Both the square footage and the minimum dimensions for outdoor play areas are met by the site plan. Standard 6, vehicle and pedestrian access. For schools with a capacity of 100 more students to provide a passenger loading zone, paved pedestrian walkways are also provided between the principal building and abutting rights of way in accordance with Standard 6. Standard 7, temporary structures for school expansion space. Relocatables. However, no temporary structures are proposed for immediate use in conjunction with the new school building. The increase in capacity of the new school building negates the need to have temporary structures for the foreseeable future. Standard 8, landscaping. Table 21.07-2 requires L2 landscaping where the PLI subject parcel is adjacent to parcels in the R-2M district, and L1 landscaping where the subject parcel borders local streets. Title 22.1 also requires parking lot landscaping. All landscaping is provided aside from relocated shrubs that were approved under alternate equivalent compliance review criteria. 21.06.20C, Table of Dimensional Standards. Setbacks are met by the proposed design. The PLI district has a height limit of 45 feet. The proposed school is 30 feet in height, which matches the maximum height allowed in the adjacent R-2M district. 21.07, Development and Design Standards. Development and Design Standards in AMC 21.07 that apply to this project or are relevant to evaluate for the project are reviewed and listed below, and these include 21.07.20 Natural Resource Protection. No applicable natural resource development design standards. There are no wetlands, streams, flood areas, or steep slopes on the parcel. 21.07.060 Transportation and Connectivity. Conditions of approval require the provisions of ADA-compliant ramps and sidewalks along N Street and M Street. The petitioner must enter into an improved public place agreement for these improvements. The Traffic Engineering Department requested additional traffic analysis for intersections along West 13th Avenue leading into and out of the neighborhood. The petitioner provided this analysis, and traffic engineering concurred with the findings of the TIA memorandum. 21.07.070 Neighborhood Protection Standards. Inlet View Elementary is within 200 feet of the R-2M district, which is a residential district containing residential properties. 21.07.80 Landscaping, Screening, and Fences. Table 21.07-2 requires L2 landscaping where the PLI subject parcel is adjacent to parcels in the R2M district for buffer landscaping. Landscaping requirements are met aside from the approved alternate equivalent compliance request to relocate 195 required shrubs to different parts of the site to allow for sight lines into the school. 21.07. 9.0, off-street parking and loading. 1 parking space is required for every 6 students, equating to the parking requirement of 67 spaces, with 3 spaces to be handicapped accessible. The site plan meets these requirements, providing a total of 67 off-street parking spaces, with 21 staff parking spaces in the west lot and 46 general parking spaces in the east lot. 21.07.100, exterior lighting. Lighting and parking facilities for the school must meet guidelines set by the Illumination Engineering Society of North America. A condition of approval for the major site plan review is for the petitioner to provide minimum lighting calculations and the glare to traffic engineering, so they may be evaluated against guidelines for lighting and parking facilities. Standard 3, the site plan addresses any significant adverse impacts that can reasonably be anticipated to result from the use by mitigating or offsetting those impacts to the maximum extent feasible. The site plan narrative describes a reduction in off-street parking in response to neighborhood comments on earlier designs to get to the 67 off-street parking spaces shown in the site plan. Elimination of Inlet Place on-street parking in response to comments received from the Traffic Engineering Department in earlier designs. Supplementary information shows changes made to the site plan resulting from public comments, including the movement of the building 20 feet to the north, reconfiguration of the kindergarten playground to increase solar access, clarification of protected trees, and grading on the western site perimeter. The site plan addresses reasonably anticipated adverse impacts and mitigates them to a feasible extent. Standard 4, the development proposed in the site plan is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. The site plan is consistent with the following policies of the 2020 Anchorage Bowl Comprehensive Plan. Policy 42, Northern City Design Concepts shall guide the design of all public facility projects, including parks and roads. The building orientation maximizes the amount of daylight to enter the building during school hours. Adjustments to the site plan responding to public comments increase the solar access of the kindergarten play area. Policy 43, plans for major institutional developments are subject to site plan review. This major site plan review through a public hearing before the Urban Design Commission meets Policy 43. Policy 44, design and build public improvements for long-term use. The design is to replace the school instead of repairing the existing school, which will provide an upgraded public school building and associated facilities for long-term use. Policy 45, connect local activity centers such as neighborhood schools and community centers with parks, sports fields, green belts, and trails where feasible. The conditions of approval for the site plan include upgrades to sidewalks along fronting streets. The sidewalk improvements will connect local activity centers to the school. Policy 50, healthy mature trees in forested areas shall be retained as much as possible. Existing vegetation is marked for protection on the amended site plan submitted as supplementary information. Policy 78, design municipal facilities frequented by the public, particularly schools, to accommodate year-round multipurpose activities. New playground equipment with fully accessible tile surfacing, grassed play areas, new skating rink, and a sledding hill. These outdoor spaces provide opportunities for year-round use. The new replacement school will also have an indoor gymnasium. Policy 89, encourage the year-round use of public schools as neighborhood and community centers. Conditions of approval will add sidewalk to connect to the school. The replacement school proposes outdoor play areas that may be used year-round. The Anchorage Original Neighborhood Historic Preservation Plan, adopted in 2013, shows the Inlet View Elementary School as eligible for the National Register. However, Chapter 7 of the plan denotes landmarks to save, which note the most previous resources in South Addition based on public comments and do not include Inlet View Elementary School. The draft South Addition Neighborhood Plan supports replacing, upgrading Inlet View Elementary School. My vote is conditional on the department recommendations 1 through 7, which are listed on pages 11 and 12. And then I would like to add to the reasons why with my personal opinions. As a parent, my children were in Denali and were bused to J-Bear, and I, as a two-parent family, was very fortunate. My kids went to Denali. That's a mixed income school, and the children that were single-parent families, maybe some of the less fortunate economic families, were significantly impacted by the effect of being bused. Not only were the children affected, but if your child gets sick during the middle of the day, or your child gets hurt on the playground, they do not bus your child back into Anchorage for you. That means if you are a single parent of low income, you are leaving your job, which may or may not be tolerant of you doing that, and paying for a cab or trying to bum a ride from a friend to get to your school, to get to your child. And I don't think that's being considered here when we talk about taking children off site. We're talking about their resilience, but we're not talking about what that impact is to a child or a parent who cannot get to each other as quickly as possible when there is a child in crisis. And that has to be considered when we talk about busing children off site. The other thing that I want to bring to that no one is talking about is safety. It's one of the most dangerous things we do is get in our cars. And you're adding traffic to the highway during the winter to take children. That is also dangerous. That's my personal opinion. It's outside my purview as a commissioner, but I feel like I needed to share that. I think the petitioner has done a phenomenal job involving the public. I've looked at your record of public involvement. I think that you've done above what's necessary to involve the public. I think you've been very responsive. I also think what a fabulous opportunity for children to witness a construction project, to see that trades have value, that you can have a successful career outside of college, to see their future school being built, to take pride of ownership of something that's in their community. I've volunteered in Inlet View as a science fair judge, and that school was in bad condition then. It was dark and dim in the halls. It was a depressing place, I think, for children. I think that the school that you're proposing to build is beautiful and will be a wonderful place for children to go to school. I think it will significantly improve the value of the community, and that's why I intend to vote in support of this motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan, would you care to speak to your second?
Yes, I would like to support the approval of case 2022-0024, and the designer made this outside a very successful location for the building. All standards are met, and I would like to recommend that they add a lot of trees on the site. That comes from one of the kids' comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Commissioner Folland. Almost forgot.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. I just want to say, again, my background is in architecture, and that is the lens that I'm using to look at this project. I want to share some information on the existing school. It was designed by architect Ed Crittenden. He spent time in Scandinavia studying northern design. He won an award from the Alaska AIA Fellows for his contributions to the theory and practice of northern architecture. His practice was known for exhibiting an exceptional understanding of the design and planning for buildings in the north, so much so that the AIA created an award for excellence in northern design in his name. I'm not saying that this means anything in particular about the existing building, but I do think it's worthy to note. The architect who first sited and designed the existing school on the given site and within the surrounding context was arguably the most influential and skilled architect to have practiced in Alaska with a particular expertise in northern design. This school project has been the most difficult case that has come before the UDC while I've been on the commission. I know everyone involved has spent a lot of time, money, and effort getting the project to where it is today. I know the development of this project was undertaken during a pandemic, which I'm sure made the beginning stages very difficult to navigate. I just want to say that I know everyone has done their best under very challenging circumstances. I also want to reiterate this set of drawings represents a 65% design completion. So while it is far along in development, it is not complete, which means there is room for further refinement. I understand the project inputs and sympathize with all sides. I also can't even begin to imagine the logistical complexities of shuffling students and children around during a relocation or a construction project. I want to make it clear that I know the design team and ASC is juggling a massive list of inputs. That being said, as a commissioner, I have taken an oath to review all our cases by very specific criteria. The design criteria I'm having a challenge with is approval criteria number 4, policy 42, regarding northern city design. Through an architectural lens, if I were to look at this site plan as a blank slate, I would question the location and massing of the building and its relationship to the outdoor play areas and the scale and mass in regards to the surrounding neighborhood. Commenters from last meeting were correct. Kids will play wherever they can, whenever they can, especially Alaskan kids. But that doesn't mean they should have to. All of us live and play in Alaska. We can just go into our own memory to think of where we choose to hang out outside if given the opportunity. As someone who was born and raised here, if I had the choice, I'd pick a southern exposure every time. The north side of the building is simply colder, darker, windier. The snow melts later, the ground is frozen longer, the ground is muddier. I have snow on the north side of my single-story house 4 to 6 weeks longer than the southern exposure. This isn't to say that a new building must be located on the north side. A building can be designed in a way to work with a southern placement, but I'm not sure this one is quite there yet. If I look at the building itself, I have more questions. Questions were asked about the orientation of the building, and the responses were along the lines that the rotation would provide daylight to the building to take advantage of natural light. That is not technically the full case. The main classroom wing has been rotated so that the classroom exposures either have a southwest or a northeast view. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it is worth noting that half the classrooms, those with a northeast view, will get very little daylight during the school day. That isn't necessarily a problem either, as long as certain programs benefit from indirect daylight. Programs such as storage, back of house, mechanical rooms, a library, tech lab, art room could benefit from indirect light. However, those programs are currently located on the other side of the building with southwest or west exposures. The main entrance having a covering while being a good idea is not enough alone to satisfy a northern design policy. If we look at the end wall of the classroom block, the exterior elevation that could be enjoying a highly desirable southeast daylight, I don't see a single window on that wall on either floor. There is a clerestory window over the entry, which is a great step, but maybe that could be further developed to aid in natural daylight, possibly even ventilation elsewhere in the project, classrooms, gym, for instance. The Northern Design Policy 42 is very open and vague in the code. I think that's both a good and bad thing. It's hard to know how far to hold a project to Northern Design. Honestly, most new buildings in Anchorage have very little, if anything, to do with their location and this unique place. I don't know how specific to go with my critique of this project. I know that I would like a school building to do more than meet the minimum standards by code. I would like to live in a city where the school buildings are aspirational on all levels and really show the kids what a building could be. I don't know if that's asking too much or if it's fair to hold this particular school to a higher level than other schools. But I do think there is room for improvement at the 65% stage to do better in regards to the Northern Design elements. That would not require it to go all the way back to the drawing board. I don't know if we can make a conditional improvement, condition of approval to do better in terms of Northern Design in general. There's room for that if everybody votes, clearly they need a new school. There's tons of work and time that has gone into this. It's just, there's still more room for improvement, is what I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Follen. We're going to ask that, I'm hearing that you have a condition of approval that you'd like to add, but I'm having a hard time understanding every word that you've said.
I don't know if that's something that we can do. I think that there is room for improvement in Policy 42 under Northern Design for this project that wouldn't require this to go all the way back to the drawing board. If you look at the interior of the plans, if certain programs were moved within the existing buildings, that would greatly improve the design of this project.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is you're just making the statement that there are significant improvements that could be made, but you are not making a specific statement for a condition of approval to be added to the motion.
Yeah, I guess not, but I would like them to modify it and do better in Northern Design.
I'm having a really hard time understanding her. That's what I thought I just stated.
Condition, or does
right.
Is she just making
and that's what I
or
right.
does she want us to put us at a condition? Okay.
So I did have it right. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Foland, for that thoughtful discussion. Commissioner Nanalo.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to this because I agree with Commissioner Foland. It has been a very tough case to have before us. It's been one of the first ones that I've been on, which has been exciting. I really do want to commend the design team. I think as anyone who's been part of a design team on a project like this, especially when you have codes and limitations, it is very hard to sometimes accommodate what everybody would like to have on the design and on the site. And I think you guys have made the best effort I could have imagined here. I think there's a lot of parts and pieces that went into this. I think you went back to the drawing board after the March meeting, and you, not totally to the drawing board, but I think you tried very hard to accommodate some concerns of the community members, which I think, well done on all of your part. It's hard. As I mentioned earlier, I attended this school. And you know what? In 1957, Ed Crittenden did do a beautiful job. It is a very charming school, and I love it. And if that school could be done to accommodate what the needs are right now, I would say absolutely, let's keep it. But it's been established that that is not the case. This is a bigger school. It is a big adjustment. But I think you guys have done a beautiful job, and well done.
Thank you. Commissioner Gordy?
Yes. Commissioner Nanalo actually kind of took some of the words out of my mouth, but no, it's perfect. I also would like to commend the design team. This is not an easy process to go through, as evidenced by the process that you've been going through. But there has been a lot of effort in this design and a lot of thoughtful decision making based on the constraints that you've had and the client that has some needs as well, and the users that are going to be using this facility for many years to come. I think you guys addressed things as best as you could, and I think you did a good job of paying attention to community input. I know you pulled together a website, you've put together these presentations. There's been a lot of things that were very publicly accessible, and the level of effort is really impressive. I also want to commend the public for showing up here. I know this is maybe the third time you've been to the UDC, maybe the second time. Either way, there's been a lot of commentary from both sides, and it's part of this process. It's really important that everybody is involved in this. This is a community project. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and for voicing your opinions, whether or not they agree with each other. It's important to see both sides, and it results in better design. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordy. Commissioner Cash?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everyone for being here and to the design team. I will echo the previous comments as well. I just want to say that I am so proud that this has come together, and I know how much that the community fell in love with that 1957 Inlet View School, and I'll just bet you we see people falling in love with this new school. So thank you. I support this.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, I'd like to make one. Chair is always last. I just wanted to say I do also, I'm going to repeat the sentiment, but I kind of wanted to just make the focus more about the kids and their education. This building is built for providing daylight and sunlight in the darkest times of the year, and as Alaskans, we know it gets pretty dark. And education, effective education, is more important than the 20 minutes that they're going to spend out in recess. Additionally, if people are upset about that shading on the north side because they want to use this facility as their own park after school hours, I looked on Google. There are a lot of parks and a lot of locations to go where you're not in the shade if you're not attending Inlet View Elementary School. So thank you, and that's all I had. So if nobody else has anything to say, then I think we can move to a vote.
I might actually just bring a point of information. Just the petitioner had mentioned the M Street sidewalk condition 6B. You don't have to act on it or not. I just wanted to recall that was one specific condition that was brought up for the UDC's information. Again, it's just informational. You don't have to address it, or you may if you wish.
So, I think that the petitioner had stated that there might be an issue with the residents not appreciating the sidewalk, but I don't know that that is something that they have the purview over. I think that has to be decided per design criteria and Title 21. So if the commission would like to speak to this in our motion, then we can. But I think otherwise, I recommend leaving it.
I'll say the planning department's position stands as to what's in the staff packet. I just wanted to bring it up from the discussion as an informational point. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think we're voting.
Ms. Bowen?
Yes.
The motion passes. Jazz hands. Thank you so much for everything tonight. I know some of you, it didn't go as planned, some of you it did. And
I apologize for all the technical.
And Lori apologizes for continually shutting off the live stream.
Thank you.
Thanks. Uh-oh, did she hang up? We're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Go ahead and dispose.
Do any of you commissioners have anything else you'd like to add tonight? Do you have anything you'd like to say?
This is incredibly educational.
Hold on.
Nothing.
Are you speaking officially?
Yeah, I think it's the 12th is our next.
If not, I think that the last item on our agenda would be a move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn, Chair.
I second.
Okay.
Can I speak to Mr. Commissioner? Did you just go off stream? We had a motion from Commissioner Cox and a second from Commissioner Sullivan. Does anybody want to stay?
Can we all just eye this and say yes? Can we adjourn?
It was. Yes. No
Meeting is no objections.
Who seconded it? Oh, Monica, okay.
Meeting is adjourned. And
thank you, Julia.